Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
And I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Tuesday. Ooh, my voice. August 27th, 2024. My name is Emma Vigeland in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Alex Sammon of Slate will be with us to talk about what he saw at a Zionist party at the DNC. Also on the program today, another day of massacres in Gaza. Israel kills at least 18, including 8 children. Israel and Hezbollah's fighting seems to have cooled. Russia attacked wide swaths of Ukraine with more than 200 missiles and drones yesterday, one of the largest since the war began. Michigan has denied RFK Jr.'s request to remove himself from the ballot, as the deadline has already passed.
Geniuses.
Jack Smith appeals Trump-appointed Judge Cannon's decision. Trump-appointed Judge Cannon's decision to dismiss the federal documents case. Democrats sue to block Georgia State Election Board's new anti-democracy pro-Trump election rules. Texas removes more than 1 million people from the voter rolls that they have deemed ineligible. The UAW calls for the Stellantis CEO to go after the company reneged on their deal to reopen an Illinois factory. In France, there are calls for impeachment after Macron refuses to name a prime minister from the left-wing coalition. We should have more on that tomorrow, by the way. The antitrust trial against Kroger's $25 billion acquisition of Albertsons kicked off yesterday. Kroger's legal arguments boil down to, well, you let Walmart do it, okay? Let us. Which is just, like, hilarious, because that was previous administrations. A Vanderbilt study finds that suburban and rural areas have higher gun violence rates than cities. We've been saying that for quite a while on this program. And lastly, in Canada, rail workers prepare a legal fight after the Canadian government imposed an end to their lockout. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome to the show, everybody. It is a Newsday Tuesday. Yes, it is. So we will be getting to Alex Sammon in a bit. He's dispatched from the DNC. I guess it was. Was he victimized by the super spreader event that was the Democratic National Convention? Apparently, right?
Unconfirmed at this point.
It is crazy, and there's no push from the Biden administration right now to encourage people to get their COVID shots, because there's an updated booster right now, folks. Look into that.
Helps against long COVID too. I'm going to get it.
Yep, me too. I've got to get on that and schedule a shot. I wish the Biden administration at least emphasized this in any way, because COVID deaths ticked up last week, is my understanding.
It'd be cool if he looked at this lame duck period as like a chance to just do whatever he wants. And it'd be nice if whatever he wants was let's lean into this COVID stuff that we've been downplaying for a while. Instead, it seems to be just help these arms shipments get out the door.
It was interesting at the DNC. They brought up COVID a good amount to highlight Trump as this negative force who talked about injecting bleach. So there is still political salience in reminding people about the chaos. It just seems like
the chaos being his rhetoric. That's really what they're judging on,
That's
which
what
is
they're
bad, of
yeah.
course, but you know.
Right. I think that overall, it seems like politically they just want to move on from it. And the country definitely doesn't like to think about COVID anymore, but you should, especially if you have comorbidities or people that you deal with that may be affected. Go get that updated booster shot.
And, you know, not to make the segment go on too long, but all these, even including Long Island, Nassau County, doing these anti-mask ordinances, just insanity.
Insanity.
Like, insane. And, like, I can't heap...
The model for what the Democrats want to do statewide, by the way, in New York State, is the Long Island strategy. They want to pull this blue state to the right.
Because it's anti-Semitic. Literally is like, it's making people feel unsafe in the protests.
Right.
That was their justification. But it is ridiculous that, I mean, and I can't heap enough disrespect at the sort of anti-mask, anti-vaxxers that RFK represents and their contribution to this moment right now. It's just horrible.
Aren't they the anti-censorship free speech guys? But now they are going to
that's a lie.
They're gonna back ordinances that tell you what kind of cloth you can or cannot wear on your face.
The Klan used to talk about free speech the same way all of these folks did in the 30s. Same with the Silver Legion anti-Semites in Minneapolis. I've just been reading about Hubert Humphrey taking on them, but they deploy free speech in the same way, which is to say, like, they hide behind it because actually talking about what they really want is really offensive to people.
So, Trump is in I guess news that's a little bit more fun. Trump is already, well, I guess this is the second round of him bitching about the debate. I mean, he is so afraid, and it's wonderful to watch him on the back foot. Trump has been now all of a sudden saying, I don't think I'm going to agree to the debate. I don't want to do it. Before he had said that he wasn't going to because of ABC. And now the campaign has a new excuse because apparently Kamala Harris very smartly doesn't want to use the same rules that Biden used the first time around in the debate, which was that the microphones for each candidate would be muted when the other one was speaking. We criticized that decision by the Biden administration, by the Biden campaign heavily at the time, because if you guys recall, in 2020, the debate where Trump had his biggest meltdown, where he was sniffling all the time and acting hysterical, was when he was on the defensive and he kept talking over Biden. And that was kind of the death knell for his 2020 ambitions. And so making him look crazy by having him interrupt her all the time, especially now that he's running against a black woman, that benefits Harris, no doubt. But I guess these were rules that Biden had already agreed to about the microphones being muted. And Harris is saying, hey, we should change those rules. And Trump is outraged about it, right? Or at least that's the excuse that they're giving. Because at the same time that's what the Trump campaign wants to emphasize to the public, like, oh, it's unfair on that front. Trump can't help himself but return to personal grievances and his complaints about the fake news over and over again, and bias and woe is me. This is what he had to say yesterday at a campaign stop in Virginia. He's asked by reporters about this, about why he's indicating that he may not want to do the debate with ABC on September 10th.
President Trump, would you want the microphones muted in the debate whenever you're not speaking?
We agreed to the same rules. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. I'd rather have it probably on, but the agreement was that it would be the same as it was last time. In that case, it was muted. I didn't like it the last time, but it worked out fine. I mean, ask Biden how it worked out. It was fine. And I think it should be the same. We agreed to the same rules. Same rules and same specifications. And I think that's probably what it should be.
He's not picking out rugs.
But they're trying to change it. The truth is they're trying to get out of it because she doesn't want to debate. She's not a good debater. She's not a smart person. She doesn't want to debate. Okay?
They're trying to get out of it. No, that's you, buddy. So, again, the campaign line wanted to be that they're changing the rules. This is unfair. It's the Harris campaign's problem. But Trump has to go into the personal there and say she's not a smart person. It was a really dumb idea to begin with. And this is Biden's fault, as many things are recently. Agreeing to that just made sense for a guy, I think, that seemingly maybe would have issues hearing, say, the moderator speak at the same time as Trump speaking, right? It was tailored to that situation. But even then, as I just said, nothing could have saved Biden's performance in that debate.
Yeah, they were trying to find like, here's where we put the gutters down in bowling, like any possible thing we can throw to save a guy who is clearly not competent to do what they're asking him to do.
Yeah, and so it makes sense that the Harris campaign wants to change course here. But every time that Trump complains about this, especially from his own mouth, Harris isn't going out there and talking about the microphone rules. This is all happening with the campaigns behind the scenes. But he's also sending out guys like Byron Donalds to argue for him. A representative from Florida here went on Fox Business yesterday and is, trying to make this Mike storyline work.
So will there be a debate to sort all this out for the undecided?
I do believe there's going to be a debate, but I would tell President Trump and his team to keep the same rules from the Joe Biden debate. And let me be very clear as to why. The reason why Kamala Harris wants to change the rules now to have open microphones is because she wants to interrupt Donald Trump. She wants to be able to create a spectacle out of this debate, which would prevent her from actually being forced to discuss public policy, discuss her positions in detail. She wants to create some sort of moment, some sort of YouTube spectacle that can be replayed so she can hide behind the debate as opposed to talking about the policies that impact the American people. She wants to be able to create this moment where she owns Donald Trump for 10 seconds. That's just ridiculous. It's not what matters in our country. Donald Trump has debated everybody from Hillary Clinton to Joe Biden, all points in between. He can definitely debate Kamala Harris, but it is in the interest of the American people that Kamala Harris is not allowed to make this debate a spectacle. It has to be about the issues facing America, because she has serious questions that she refuses to answer. And the way they're campaigning, the only way the American people will get a straight answer about her policy positions and the thought process behind them, and that's very important, the thought process behind them, is if she actually has a very clear debate with Donald Trump where both people have an opportunity to express themselves without being interrupted, whether it be by the moderators or by the opposing person. Kamala Harris wants a spectacle. She doesn't want a debate on issues. That's why she wants to change the rules.
Yes, so this is the reframe. They want it to be that she's changing the rules. So they're putting this out there that this is what the Harris campaign is lobbying for.
She's going to bulldoze me.
I mean, okay, so I love
She's
watching
like Zion going down the lane.
This whiny little campaign just fall into just slip into the warm bath of the Hillary 2016 vibes here, okay? Yeah. Don't campaign too much in the swing states. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. I mean, use an algorithm to figure that stuff out. Just
complain about your opponent's manners.
Yeah, talk about how mean they are.
Kind of weird. That's
they're interrupting me. They're great. Oh, Trump doesn't want shots at me. Trump does not want to be interrupted. Trump does not want to be interrupted at the debate. Actually, I mean, it's really a beautiful blend of Biden 2020 and Hillary 2022 as well, where you got the age stuff. Trump's now, making the campaign into his own, kind of personal ambition for the presidency, or making that the sole focus as opposed to in 2016 where he's like, I'm going to give you health care, I'm going to end all the wars or whatever. He's running basically as a neocon. We played that yesterday with his Iran fear-mongering, again, shades of past failed campaigns, making it about foreign policy and his own desire and selfishness in that way. It's just not a winning message.
You don't think the winning message for Trump is to tell the American people that he's being bullied away from talking policy by Kamala Harris?
I don't think has anyone ever heard about the boy who cried wolf?
He is just whiny now. You read his tweets, and it used to be funny, but even now when he tries to throw in his little insults, it's like you are writing 1,200 words whining right now.
Yes.
No, he's really doing the equivalent of the Luka Doncic, red-faced, I got fouled and won't run back on defense.
He's trying to work the refs.
It is total ref work.
He's crying for mods. Mods, save me here. Where are the moderators? Where are the microphone muters?
They're calling me weird.
Harris put out.
If she calls him weird at the debate, he will lose his mind.
It's going to happen. Let's put up the statement that the Harris campaign put out there. I just sent it to you, Bradley. This was what they had to say in response to microphone Winegate. Their reaction: we have told ABC and other networks seeking to host a possible October debate that we believe both candidates' mics should be live throughout the full broadcast. Our understanding is that Trump's handlers prefer the muted microphone because they don't think their candidate can act presidential for 90 minutes on his own. We suspect Trump's team has not even told their boss about this dispute because it would be too embarrassing to admit. They don't think he can handle himself against Vice President Harris without the benefit of a mute button. What I like about this here is also that they're goading Trump into responding, because and agreeing honestly to their demands, because if it's portrayed as if his handlers think he can't hack it without the mute button, then perhaps he changes course on this front. He doesn't have the leverage here. He needs the debate is the reality. He is losing. Harris has gotten a 2 to 3 point convention bump in polling averages, and that's still rolling out as we speak. And before that, the momentum had already begun to swing in her way. And RFK not being able to get himself off the ballot in the key swing state of Michigan is significant. So we shall see.
Genius. Well, I mean, you didn't think to check that?
I know. He basically waited until he ran out of money. The worm was telling him just stay in a little bit longer and maybe you can get 5% and become a party on the national level. That was their aim. He's staying for that reason on the ballot in non-swing states, but
with spoilers like this, who needs dark horses?
Right. They're not sending their best.
What I find pretty incredible about the Donalds thing too is like Donalds is giving like his usual. That's like sort of how he talks rhetorically about basically any issue, but which makes it seem like he's saying something like very serious and calculating and like stern and discerning and shrewd for Trump to like why Kamala Harris is doing this. He's really, when you read the tea leaves though, he's basically just saying Kamala's gonna embarrass him and we can't have that. And if she gets a soundbite that is distributed widely over and over and over again for the next 2 months, like Trump is going to have a world historical meltdown that we as a party cannot come back from.
Yes.
Because, I mean, it is the imagery there that will play a lowest common denominator, which is a younger black woman telling an old white bigot, say, shove it.
Yeah.
And that, like, regardless of any content that comes out on the longer form review of the debate, I think they're right that that's not a good look for Trump. No, there's no image that will come out of that where Trump looks good in a snapshot.
No, and you know, she in 2019, it was in 2019, but for the 2020 campaign, she tried that little girl was me thing to hit Biden, you know, before he selected her as VP, because there was a profile of Kamala Harris in the Washington Post this weekend about how she was one of the first kids in the school busing program to integrate the schools in Berkeley, which was voluntarily done in California in that area, as opposed to imposed in other areas of the country. And at the time, Biden was advocating for even a constitutional amendment to prevent school integration via busing. That was why she hit him on that in the debate. Now, you know, I maintain that I think, you know, Biden's racism was also a big part of why he was selected in 2008 by Obama to quell some of those fears. Like, that's the kind of guy he is, unfortunately. I think she's an improvement in that regard, but also that tactic outside of a Democratic primary where a lot of Democratic voters don't want to think about the vice president to the first black president as a racist who eulogized Strom Thurmond, but you go after the guy who is widely known to be extremely racist with that tactic, much more effective, and he's worried about that. And last thing on this, it's like, what are we doing here? Debates should not be like little segmented 1-minute statements where they can't interact with one another, just on like a fundamental level about what a debate should be. They should be forced to interact. They should be forced to crosstalk. That's how this thing works.
I would like a formal written debate segment where they, expend themselves at length and reply to each other's responses, maybe in the papers of record. But we got to play this up for television. So we accept this as like the number one like medium for truth, and it's absolutely ridiculous.
This is the television country. Are you thinking?
It's crazy. Neil Postman was right. That's all I'll say.
If we did written debates in newspapers, do you know what the level of like turnout would be for the election? I feel like just like we elected the reality TV
We could
guy
have
for
people. We
president.
could have people act them out afterwards. Maybe.
You volunteer?
No,
I'll do it. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
No, we need
I was
to-
thinking like Morgan Freeman and I don't know other people that are really good and has
Yes.
gravitas. But
There we go.
We need two people yelling at each other as to who wants to be more energy independent.
Yep.
That's what the country needs.
Yep.
it could be George Clooney versus John Voight, like reading the written.
Are the two
debate
most
out.
powerful celebrities in the country.
Patriots. The jackal is coming, and her name is Kamala Harris.
Okay, easy now. All right, guys, a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Alex Sammon.
Hey, folks, I'm sure you have read some of this, and you know that a lot of people are learning about all the benefits about fasting. Of course, there's weight loss, but there is mental and physical performance, gut health, and longevity. But one of the issues that people have with fasting is the whole not eating part. Well, that's exactly why Prolon was created. Introducing Prolon. It's a revolutionary plant-based nutrition program that nourishes the body while making cells believe they are fasting. It's researched and developed for decades at the University of Southern California Longevity Institute. It's backed by leading U.S. medical centers. Prolon helps promote healthy blood sugar, support cardiovascular health, and reduce abdominal fat. I did it. 5 days. I think it was in February. I was doing the show. Honestly, I was nervous because I fast, once a year for Yom Kippur, and I usually get like a throbbing headache by the time 2 o'clock comes around. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do the show. But the thing about Prolon is it's like fasting, but with food. And, it's not a ton of food, but it's enough to keep you going. I felt energized during the whole thing. It starts with this 5-day Prolon program, snacks, soups, and beverages, all designed to keep your body in a fasting state. Comes in like 5 packages, so it's super easy. You don't have to think about it. It's really unlike anything you've ever experienced. Right now, Prolon is offering the Majority Report with Sam Seder listeners 15% off their 5-day nutrition program. Go to prolonlife.com/majority. That's PROLON life.com/majority for this special offer. Check it out. Put the link in the podcast and YouTube description. And now, back to Emma.
We are back, and we are joined by Alex Sammon, politics writer at Slate, who is with us, fighting through some of the a cold / potentially, I don't know what it is, but apparently the DNC was a super spreader event. So welcome home, Alex. How was it? Did you have fun?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's an interesting event. It's it's like nothing happens of consequence, but also, everything or everyone is there and, all these Democratic politicians. So it's like, it's both the most interesting and least interesting thing you can do. Then everyone got sick.
I was listening to Democracy Now! Last week, and I saw Juan Gonzalez made this point, which I hadn't put together, that like back in the 80s, there used to be different coalitions that would come on the floor with signs that represented, what they wanted to say at the convention or represent or what their interests were. And it's really been replaced by, there was those few moments where the anti-genocide protesters were drowned out by the We Love Joe or the Kamala signs. But it's like, there's this it's become extremely corporate. I've only been, I guess I didn't go to the 2016 convention, actually. I just reported on it from the outside. But yeah, that's what strikes me a little bit, is that it seems like it's become basically a 4-day long advertisement for the party exclusively. It was always that, right? But now it's more like that's what it's become, as opposed to say like, hey, this different kind of coalition of Democrat can speak, etc.
Right. Especially now, right? It's like the unity vibes are so high in the party, and it was just like a pep rally, basically. There's like only one faction that has any complaint about any policy position or anything else, and it's the ceasefire protesters and delegates, and even they didn't get their moment. So total pep rally. Lots of corporate sponsors also.
Right. And you mentioned there the ceasefire, the pro-Palestine, anti-genocide demonstrators, the uncommitted folks. Would you say that your observations at the Zionist Party showed an activated base? I mean, we'll get into that now. I guess people should read your piece in Slate. I went to a Zionist Democrats party at the DNC. What I saw made me think there's a policy shift coming, is the title of the piece. What was the mood in the Zionist DNC?
And can I just underline what Emma's saying? Zioness, like lioness.
Well, those were T-shirts that were handed out. I mean, it's called, I guess it was called something else, right? It was no, maybe I'm wrong.
That's the name of the group, Zioness. Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Matt. I assumed that was just like a sub tagline or like something for the T-shirt. No, that's what they call. Oh, yes.
No, that's the org. Yeah.
It's interesting because, sometimes white supremacists use a lion as a symbol for their mighty, magnitude, right? And you can draw some real comparisons between Zionism and white supremacy, but we don't need to go there right now. So was Zioness, was it a bitchin' time?
Yeah. So like the funny thing about the DNC, right, is there's all this programming all day long, and then there's all this, sort of like nightlife stuff. There are all these parties and so it's like two sides of the coin, right? There's the formal remarks during the day, and then the after hours stuff is also sort of important to get like a lay of the land and like, where things are at in terms of like, who's got the juice and who doesn't. And so like this group Zioness, I think it's actually a really interesting group. I don't go into too much detail of its backstory in the piece, but like it's sort of an AIPAC spinoff. It was like stood up in 2017 by the Lawfare Project, which is sort of a right-wing group. And one of the women, Ann Lewis, is an AIPAC person going back, years and years. And she was a Hillary Clinton advisor and stuff. It's been a pretty marginal group for a while, but it sort of was chartered at the same time as Democratic Majority for Israel. So it's sort of like part of the AIPAC strategy of like having a bunch of different orgs that they can sort of like stand up and sit down depending on how they want to spend in an election or whatever it is. So this group was like launching its action fund. So it was the first time that they're getting into political spending. Yeah, so you would think like, right, they obviously, AIPAC has spent a ton of money in this election cycle. They've been largely successful. Joe Biden has been utterly unwilling to accommodate anything other than the most sort of like AIPAC friendly position on Israel. So you would think it would be sort of like a triumphant moment, or at least like an ascendant feeling in the party. And it was like, obviously Zioness is the feminist version of AIPAC. So it was, progressive, pro-Zionist, pro-Kamala, I think was the slug for the party. But it wasn't that. So that's the whole thing. It was very hard to get on the list for this party because they were like, oh, we're so oversubscribed. Like the list is plus, overbooked, and like more than 500 people. Like they sent out an email being like, you can't bring plus ones. Like this thing is going to be jammed. And then I got there and it was like 35 people. It had promised to bring, they had promised that 2 senators and 7 members of Congress would be speaking at this party. Both the senators no-showed. 6 of the 7 members of Congress did not speak. And, supposedly 2 of them were in the room and didn't speak. I didn't see them. The big closer was Mondaire Jones, who's not even in Congress. So it was an interesting dynamic. It was not like the triumphant sort of atmosphere that you might think, given the sort of posture that I think AIPAC has had toward publicly in this election cycle.
So Mondaire Jones spoke. He's running for Congress again. You had an interesting interaction with Mondaire Jones at the end of this party. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So he was the big closer. And obviously he's had this massive political makeover. And he, when he came to Congress in 2020 was like the court reform, like the left-wing court reform guy, structural reforms. And now he's like, pro-Israel first and everything else is sort of second. And he's running in New York's 17th district. It's like an important flip for Democrats. They really want that seat back. It's like, it's Hudson Valley. It's pretty democratic. It should be an easy win. And he's running against Mike Lawler. Yeah, he gave this speech that was, it sort of invoked the defensiveness and defiance, I think, of the whole event, where they were like, he was like, it's not a contradiction to love Israel and be progressive. It doesn't not make sense to be progressive and also pro Zionism. Like,
right.
It was a lot of those. It was like, like, don't let the criticisms get you down. Like, there's no contradiction in terms of our position, and we love Israel, and like, we'll do whatever it takes to make sure that Netanyahu can, keep on keeping on. And like, I don't know, was it stirring? There weren't any people there to be stirred, but obviously I think that this is, he's also running against someone who is pretty close to AIPAC on the Republican side, and Mike Lawler. And I don't know. It's an interesting, the political calculus there is interesting. I'll just say that.
Absolutely. Here's an image of the shirts that you took at the Zionist AF event. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Did you take one of those home?
Oh, you better believe it. Yeah, I got it in my room right now.
I mean, that's got to be at least just, I don't know, some sort of collector's item, even if it's extremely depraved.
It only works visually because when you say Zionist, it just sounds like someone saying Zionist.
Right. Or did you misspeak, or do you know what you're talking about? So, like, you mentioned that they advertised that there were going to be many more politicians speaking who did not. Who were some of the other politicians, at least in attendance, and some of your observations from that?
Yeah, so the only sitting member of Congress who was supposed to be there and actually showed up was Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and that was really funny because of course her speaking slot got nixed by the DNC on Monday night, so they kicked her off the program because they were running long or whatever, and she was one of the first casualties, which is honestly so funny because she's also a former chair of the DNC. Like, she's someone with like institutional standing, at least historically, and they scotched her from the program. So her like consolation prize was coming to this event and speaking at this event, and she gave like a, I don't like a 2 or 3 minute speech, and then she just bolted. Like, it was not, I don't think her heart was in it. She did show up and she did sort of say what you would expect her to say, but then she was out of there. She was not hanging around. And the only other member of Congress who actually showed up was Brad Schneider from Illinois, and he wasn't even on the program. He just showed up because he's a team player.
He's a huge Zionist.
Yeah,
he was just quoted in the Times of Israel, and they've been doing this like once a week. The Times of Israel, which is like a right-wing paper in Israel, will put out some article saying Kamala Harris won't change arms policy. Kamala Harris says this Democrat who talked to this aide. I mean, the Congress person who was quoted in that latest piece, which got some run, and I was trying to say, like, this is not somebody close to the team that can give you any kind of real assurances on this front, was that representative there. So that, I mean, I'm interested what the mood was. I mean, you talk about it in your piece, but it seems like, just based on numbers alone, there's a bit of deflation. Is there any even recognition of the Palestinian cause in an event like this, or like, does the word Palestinian even like come out of anybody's mouth?
Definitely not. So
okay.
That was not. There was some interesting, like, Van Jones was there to talk about how, like, the civil rights struggle and being pro-Israel are basically the same political project, which was very interesting. And which featured like this. I was surprised. I didn't get the exact quotes. I didn't put it in the piece, but it was just like, he had this thing where he was like, the Black community and the Jewish community did the civil rights movement because you can't count on like the Puerto Ricans and the Swiss to get stuff done, and that's the same thing with Israel or whatever. And it was just
could he? Malcolm, just look up what Malcolm X had to say about Zionism. And I mean, like, that is such a cynical bastardization of that for that kind of audience. But he runs wherever the money goes, I guess. That's his thing these days.
Yeah, it's just funny because it's like, imagine if it was reversed and he was at like a anti-Zionist sort of event, like such a categorically political anti-Zionist event, like CNN would have fired him in 19 seconds, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's sort of interesting. Yeah, the mood was funny because it was like, so Ilan Goldenberg, who's the Harris campaign's new Jewish community liaison, spoke there as well, and he wasn't on the program. But if you look through his record, like progressives are sort of happy about that choice,
He's
right?
okay.
Yeah. His track record is not so bad whatever. His track record is not so sort of conservative on Israel. It's a little more on the progressive side of things. So, the fact that he was there was interesting. It was like, I talked to someone who was like, he should have known better. He shouldn't have been there, which is interesting. At the same time, his remarks were sort of fascinating as well, because he was like, Kamala Harris, is very attuned to Jewish culture and a Jewish community. Like, her husband is Jewish, and they do, they've like done all these things at the White House, and they, they're going to continue to celebrate Jewish holidays and all this stuff. Which was interesting to me because it was not about Israel. It was about Jewishness, which, I thought was notable. It's funny to me too, because I think if you look through Harris's advisors on this stuff, you see that, like, especially on the foreign policy side, like, they're in the blob, but they're on the left. They're on the left edge of the blob, right? Like, they're not like, fire breathing progressives, but they're not Joe Biden. They're not Joe Biden's advisors.
That's what I've been saying. Yeah. I care about who her staff is more than I care about the rhetoric at this moment. In that same, even though we need policy concessions, but in terms of, like, if you want to forecast, tomorrow we're going to be having a guest on to talk about Phil Gordon and what her top advisor, national security advisor, who's expected to stay on in that role if she were to be president. He's currently the national security advisor to the vice president. And the study of this work that Michael Brennis did kind of comes to that same conclusion, where this is more of a return to Obama era, maybe foreign policy, at least as it relates to Israel, as opposed to giving them the farm. Taking a more even-handed approach, at least, is what he advocated for in his books. We would have to see if the infrastructure would be there for them to do that. But the fact that Ilan Goldenberg said just focus on Jewish identity at that event is interesting to me as well.
Yeah. And, like, I don't know, the speakers who talked to, who were pretty rah-rah. I mean, obviously, right, this is also, they were launching a political action fund. So it's like, the context there is important too. It was just a lot of, like, there was a lot of talking about the past tense about how much Joe Biden valued the Israel, the U.S.-Israel relationship, and, like, how, and it's like, there's a reason they felt they even needed to have this event, right? Like, there's a reason that you feel like you need to launch a pro-Kamala, progressive, pro-Israel organization. And it's because you don't trust that your position is being, sort of like taken care of without it. And so, to me, it was interesting. It's one of those things where I think, obviously people are disappointed by the DNC programming, or, they felt coming out of that like there wasn't nearly enough said about the plight of the Palestinian people and everything else. And, but I think that, like, you go to these events and stuff and you feel, at least from the pro-Israel side, that there's concern from them. Like, they feel like something might be changing. And to me, that feels notable.
We had a viewer write in, number 13, Netanyahu was literally mentioned by name. Like, they were praising Netanyahu at this event, not even doing the liberal Zionist thing where they criticized Netanyahu, or...
I asked Brad Schneider about this. I don't remember them saying exactly praising Netanyahu by name, but after Brad Schneider spoke, I went up to him and I was like, surely you're concerned about the fact that, like, Netanyahu would prefer Trump to win, and this approach is just politically suicidal for Democrats, right? The embrace of Netanyahu, who has, totally contrary motivations, political motivations to Democratic success. Surely that's a concern to you. And he was like, he was like, I'm not going to defend everything Israel has done. But,
close to it.
That was like, which is sort of an interesting line. It's like, usually, I mean, yeah, you sort of, you expect a certain deftness with these very obvious questions. And that one didn't get dispatched very, very, very easily. And I was surprised by that. But Yeah, I don't know. They weren't like, oh yeah, Netanyahu. But when I asked Schneider, he was like he certainly he didn't condemn him. He didn't say like, oh, obviously Netanyahu has gone too far and we need a better leadership team or whatever. Which some Democrats have done, but he also was not willing to. Yeah, it was sort of like he didn't really know what to do with it, and wasn't willing to do any sort of real criticism. So.
How about AIPAC? Was AIPAC at all discussed at the event?
No mention of AIPAC, which is, obviously this group is very much in the AIPAC extended universe, and it didn't come up. There wasn't actually even much talk about the campaign spending of this cycle, which was interesting. There wasn't, they didn't talk about AIPAC's impact on the primary cycle in 24. There was no real mention of it. It was just, it was more of like, celebrating the Biden Israel policy and sort of being like, it's going to continue. We're going to do our best to try. And that was sort of the main, the primary note in the whole thing.
All right. Well, Alex, people should read your piece on this. It's fascinating. It's called "I Went to a Zionist Democrats Party at the DNC. What I saw made me think there's a policy shift coming." I really appreciate your time today, and rest up. Feel better.
Thanks so much.
All right. With that, we'll turn to another story here on this news day, a really important one as it relates to voting rights. So Alex Burris of Bolt's Magazine had a piece that came out yesterday evening, I believe, that is really concerning. Voting rights activists in Nebraska had felt that they had made some headway in this regard, and Republicans in the government there basically nixed what was supposed to go into effect as it related to voting rights. The article is entitled "Nebraska Reverts to 19th Century Voting Restrictions, Clouding Rights for Thousands." And this is key heading into 2024 because, Omaha and that Nebraska 2nd District could be, in theory, the decisive vote for the election. It could break the 269-269 tie. Nebraska and Maine are the two states in the country that, in the Electoral College, basically don't have a winner-take-all system. So they split it into districts, right? And Nebraska's 2nd includes Omaha. It's been polling well for Biden and for Harris. I think I saw the latest average for 538 was like +8 for Harris at this moment. So there's Black people in that area, Latino people, indigenous people, and those are the folks who are disproportionately blocked from registering now due to the Republican Party's actions in the state as it relates to this bill that was supposed to take effect on July 19th. It's called Legislative Bill 20, and it would have given 7,000 people in Nebraska, which is, not a very populated state, 7,000 people who had past felony convictions the right to vote. And it was set to go in effect on July 19th. The voting rights groups had reserved ad space to get out the word that this was happening, that you could register if you qualified. But the Attorney General Mike Hilgers and the Secretary of State Bob Evnen, two Republicans, have just essentially refused to implement the law. More here from Bolts by Alex Burris. If we could scroll to the part that starts with "on July 17th, Bradley. On July 17th, less than 48 hours before LB 20 was to take effect, Hilgers issued an advisory opinion stating that the new law was unconstitutional. Okay, first of all, so that's just the Attorney General saying it's unconstitutional. These are the
my opinion.
Yep, yeah. This is the kind of stuff that look, they're gonna challenge it, but you're not supposed to be able to just do that universally. Unconstitutionality is determined through the judiciary, okay, and constitutionality. As I just said, on July 17th, less than 48 hours before LB 20 was to take effect, Hilders issued an advisory opinion saying that the new law was unconstitutional. But Hilders didn't stop there. He also declared unconstitutional a 2005 reform law ending lifetime disenfranchisement of anyone convicted of any felony.
Yeah, well, I'm at it.
So he goes back nearly 20 years in the past, 19 years into the past, to a 2005 law that Nebraska passed, Legislative Bill 58, which allowed Nebraskans to vote 2 years after completing their sentences, a waiting period that LB 20 was set to eliminate. So it's already been in effect that if you were convicted of a felony, it's a 2-year waiting period, and then you can register again. LB 20 was going to close that gap and, in the present day, basically allow for those 7,000 in that period to register to vote in the election. And this had gone through all the processes that it needed to, but just basically, universally, the Republicans that run the state just axed it. In his opinion, Hilders wrote that the State Board of Pardons, the three-member body composed of him, Evnen, and the Republican Governor Jim Pillen, so 3 Republicans, has sole discretion over whether to restore someone's voting rights. Right after Hilders issued his opinion, Evnen, the state's top election official, emailed county-level elections offices ordering that based on the AG's stance, we will not be implementing LB 20 and will no longer register individuals convicted of felonies. These moves by Hilders and Evnen shocked Nebraskans who have spent years pushing for voting rights restoration. The new law had overwhelmingly passed the Republican-controlled legislature earlier this year, and Nebraskans with past felonies have been registering to vote and actually voting for almost 20 years with little issue or outcry. For 2 guys working with one mind to come in and say, you know what, never mind, we're taking it back and also jumping in our political DeLorean and removing the law. It's outrageous, Aaron Pettis, a formerly incarcerated organizer and advocate in Omaha, tells Bolts. At 44, he'd been poised to vote in this fall for the first time in his life. When it was revoked, it was traumatic. I feel like I was back in prison. It felt like I was back in prison, he said.
I mean, partially.
Right. I mean, this is just a continuation of our insane prison industrial complex where we incarcerate the most people in the world per capita and raw figures. Yeah. And then after they leave, especially when oftentimes these felony convictions are related to drug offenses targeting poor, black, brown, indigenous, Latino communities, whatever, then when they come out, okay, there's already this 2-year waiting period that shouldn't be allowed. By the way, people in prison should be able to vote because their lives are still affected by this as well.
I agree.
But even when they come out, okay, there's this 2-year waiting period. Nebraska advocates get this through. But now it's not even that, like, the law that's been in effect for 19 years with the stroke of a pen, the Republican governor and his 2 cronies just basically say, nah, we're not doing that anymore.
We got an election to win.
Unbelievable. The nonprofit Civic Nebraska and 3 disenfranchised plaintiffs represented by the state branch of the ACLU sued Evnen and 2 county-level officials in late July seeking to compel them to allow citizens who have finished all terms of their convictions to register to vote in accordance with both the new reform law and the one that passed nearly 20 years ago. The state Supreme Court in early August agreed to hear the case and plans to hold oral arguments on Wednesday. We didn't have any problem finding plaintiffs because so many people had been excited to register to vote were so upset. This font is very small, and I'm not wearing my glasses. Adam Moorfield, a former state lawmaker who helped found Civic Nebraska, told Bolts it's a mess. So that's insane. I mean, we'll keep you abreast of the updates on that court case there, but it's just one thing to just the typical Republican malfeasance of like slow walking the law that had just taken effect from doing so. That's what you expect from them. But to go back and axe a democratically passed law in 2005 to retroactively do this kind of thing, I mean, it's just it's all projection when they talk about Democrats rigging the game.
Yeah, it's an assault on democracy. Ron DeSantis, the election that saw him elected governor in Florida, narrowly defeating Andrew Gillum, in the same election, that was a very tight result, not a tight result, overwhelmingly chosen by Floridans, was to re-enfranchise felons, which is a big population in Florida. And DeSantis and the GOP said basically you're going to have to go through a labyrinthine administrative process and pay a bunch of different fees, or it's going to be serious issue if you try to vote without clearing those hurdles. Just attack on democracy. And one final thing is, I don't like to be a spoil sport, but this is the kind of thing where it's like where people were saying maybe let's not lean so hard into calling Trump a felon thing. Like I think it's good to emphasize him breaking the law, but just leaning on that pejorative, I think, isn't really cultivating the type of atmosphere that we want in terms of democracy.
No, but I've got bad news for you about how Kamala Harris is going to run against him as a prosecutor. Yeah. And I from a macro view, I agree with you. It is, though, you mentioned Florida and that felon rule. Trump had to vote early. Did you know that he's already voted for himself? In part because of those rules, because he's a convicted felon.
Right, that's right.
And in Georgia, this was less than 24 hours ago. The DNC is suing, and the Democratic Party of Georgia, they're suing the Georgia State Election Board because basically this election board has implemented a bunch of rules that allow for county officials who, the Republicans have been working to stack these election offices, particularly in red states, with loyalists. It empowers county officials who want to refuse to certify the election results to continue to cause delays. Some of this has taken effect in Arizona here, but in Georgia, this is acute because Trump is currently in the middle of a RICO case in this state, being indicted for calling the Secretary of State Raffensperger and saying, I just need to find this amount of votes. I need to find these votes so he could win the state, because he lost in 2020 by around 10,000 votes. And so even with now he's by the way, he's been in a 4-year-long feud with Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, from this period. Last week he tweeted something like, I love Brian Kemp. Might have something to do with this, because Kemp is also apparently saying, I'll hear the challenges to these rules. It'd be interesting to see how he rules. I'm sure he'll probably do it for Trump in the end, because partisanship wins at the end of the day. But they do,
Kemp.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not a foregone conclusion. I think because of how much he was put through by what happened in 2020.
And a lot of it's circumstantial. Like if Trump looks like a loser and it looks like his heart's barely in it, why would any Republican go above and beyond to help steal election for him? If it gets very close and very, very tight, the pressure on somebody like that becomes a lot more clear. But I'm not sure Trump's doing enough to put the pressure on him, frankly.
Right. So basically what has happened in Georgia is that Republicans have been stacking the election board. And then over the past few weeks, they've passed a lot of rules. This is how ProPublica talks about it here. The members of the Georgia State Election Board could not have been clearer. Back in May, 4 of them voted down a proposed rule that would have given county election boards a new way to delay or reject election results, which could throw the November vote count into chaos. You run counter to both the federal and state law, said Ed Lindsay, a Republican board member and attorney who practices election law, to the woman who proposed the rule. This rule violates federal law. It also violates state law, said Sarah Tyndall Ghazal, the board's lone Democrat. It's just not ready for prime time yet, said the board chairman, noting that it needed more work to ensure its legality. Even the lone board member supporting the rule, Janice Johnston, a retired obstetrician who had made unvalidated claims about falsified vote tallies in Fulton County, voted against it. The 5th board member did not vote. The board agreed that 2 members would work on improvements to the rule. 3 months later, a new draft of the rule came back for a vote. This time, it passed 3-2. How much did the rule change between drafts? A new review by ProPublica shows hardly at all. In fact, election law experts told ProPublica that the small changes made the rule even less compliant with existing law. The rule dramatically expands the authority of county officials overseeing the usually mundane task of certifying elections. The passage of it was enabled by nationally prominent election deniers and the Georgia legislature. And the board members who passed it were cheered on by former President Donald Trump. It comes at a time when Trump and his allies are already calling into question the fairness of the elections process and making preparations to contest the results, and as Trump slips behind Vice President Kamala Harris in swing state polls. So here's just a few more details on this change.
Yeah, just one quick note. Like,
Yeah.
I do think people need to look back at, and On the Media had a good coverage of the 2000 election. This is not hypothetical in this country. This is how elections are stolen. They've been stolen in this country. And this is like how they would be stolen in the future if they're not stolen this time. Yeah.
Yeah. And even if Trump does not win, right?
This will be tried again.
It's the blueprint. So basically, Raffensperger was not, after 2021, was removed as designated chair of the state election board. Instead, they gave themselves the power to appoint the chair unless they were out of session, in which case the governor could do it, though they could replace the chair once they were back in session. Another of the changes came this past May, after Lindsay, the Republican board member who had called the rule illegal, was pressured to resign. The Republican Speaker of the House replaced him with Janelle King, the former deputy state director of the Georgia Republican Party and a conservative media personality who has no experience in election administration and who had tweeted, "I have questions," about the results of the 2020 election.
And she just loves the Constitution.
She just loves it all up. With King, the board became stacked with a majority of members who had questioned the results of the 2020 election. In early August, Trump praised all three by naming them. He named them. Praised all three by name during an Atlanta rally, calling them pit bulls fighting for honesty, transparency, and victory. Meanwhile, the proponents of the rule, including Bridget Thorne, a Republican Fulton County commissioner who calls herself the rule's originator, decided to resubmit it. Thorne told ProPublica that claims of the rule's illegality were an attempt to scare her. "I went and talked to lawmakers," she said, "and they didn't see anything wrong with the rules." Thorne said she got advice and support on the revised rule from Hans von Spakovsky, a Heritage Foundation lawyer who led efforts for stricter voting laws nationwide for decades. Ken Cucciolini, a former Virginia Attorney General and the chairman of the Election Transportation Initiative, a group advocating for Republican priorities. Transparency Initiative, a group advocating for Republican priorities in election law. So basically, she consulted with a bunch of Republican.
And just to give a little context on Ken Cuccinelli, he was also one of the former DHS leaders that was found to have not been rightfully appointed. He's a big-time fascist and has run for many offices in Virginia. And Cleta Mitchell, the head of the Election Integrity Network, she used to be a partner at Jones Day at a law firm, which was representing Trump in a number of these cases to try and overturn the election.
Interesting. Did you say Janelle King, was it?
Yes.
She's married, Black Republican, married to another Black Republican, Kelvin King, who lost to, I believe, Herschel Walker in the primary. So it's a nice little political family they got going on down there.
So these are the efforts that Republicans are trying to pursue ahead of the election. This is just something to really keep in mind. Arizona, we already probably have an indication based on the rules that they've passed that we won't get the results for like days because of their kind of Byzantine process that they've implemented to prevent the voter fraud that never happened. And look, I'm okay with recounting, right? But not as some sort of like matter of rule. It's more just like if it is within a certain threshold of like statistical probability that there could be some errors, right? Like recounts, I think, are good, but not a recount by default that's also put in the hands of Republican operatives.
Well, no, but it's not just that they count them so thoroughly. It's that they say, "Oh, we need to really recount this," but then actually a deadline comes and we need to make a decision, like happened in 2000.
2000, right?
And so
or
it's
like,
all of a sudden an unelected body making the decision on it.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, like the hanging Chad stuff. I mean, what irregularities can we find in these ballots, etc.? So something to really keep in mind, folks. With that said, we're going to wrap up the first hour of this program and head into the fun half, where we will take your calls and read your IMs. Matt, what's happening on Left Reckoning?
Ben Burgess tonight talking about his piece on Naomi Klein, which I'm about to read, but I'm excited to talk to Ben about it. Also be talking about this landlord stuff. Interesting audio found by Democracy Now! Maybe we can play it here about some guys saying, yeah, this rise in rep prices that we're seeing, it's us, baby. And I don't know that that's necessarily true. Like, part of me thinks that a focus on AI with regards to landlords is sort of like focusing on AI with regards to the IDF. Like, I don't trust them whether they have AI or not, but I will take any opportunity to agitate against them, and I think it's a good thing. So, and I also think Real Page is driving up rents. So check that out tonight, patreon.com/leftreckoning.
Yesterday on ESPN, Bradley and I talked a bit of fantasy. We also talked about
like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, close. They're both I don't know, like things I've geeked out about in the past. So this one's just in the present. We talked about players that I like, rules that I usually abide by in fantasy football drafts, that kind of thing. The
one time I won my fantasy league, I drafted two great tight ends, Jimmy Graham and the guy from the Patriots that murdered somebody.
Oh, Aaron Hernandez.
And I totally destroyed my entire league because I had them the entire season.
That is those Aaron Hernandez seasons too. Like, that was with Gronk, who's probably the best tight end of all time. Like, you know, in terms of his blocking ability and his receiving ability, but when they were both on the field, like, that revolutionized. This is why Belichick still doesn't get enough credit. Like, that was he invented essentially the slot receiver position of, like, the little white guy going over the middle, at least in the Patriots version of it. And then the two tight end sets where those guys were such receiving threats that they had the multiple options of block. They didn't know if they were going to pass or run, right? So It gave Brady so many options. Yeah, those guys were freaks. And Jimmy Graham, he was a former basketball player who caught every touchdown.
BD Zav, Jimmy Graham was terrible. Well, then I won my fantasy league with a terrible tight end. So
Jimmy Graham had a few years of dominance in New Orleans. Like, he didn't have the success that he wanted to after he left, or he was traded to Seattle and then bounced around the league. But
I wasn't playing fantasy at that time. So.
Sam is my Pookie says Travis Kelce is the GOAT. Emma, Travis Kelce is the greatest pass catching tight end of all time. Travis Kelce does not block. You know, I love Travis Kelce as a player, but I just think that, like, sometimes blocking is key for the tight end position. And Gronk, you know, despite being a big idiot, and I hate seeing him as a broadcaster, for example, that people should go watch those old highlights. It's like another kind of human being. Anyway, 64625.
Sorry. Can I plug the Muhammad's fundraiser?
Yes, I'm so sorry. Yes.
Oh no, that's okay. No. I also just wanted to do it because I have the videos ready now.
Yes. Okay. So we mentioned this yesterday. Sorry, I got into sports. It's so meaningless, obviously, compared to this. We have a GoFundMe here. People might remember Muhammad Al Dagma. We've previously promoted a GoFundMe that he organized, which was successful in getting many members of his family over the Egyptian border, including his niece, who you can see photographed there in the middle, who has Down syndrome. Some of the men stayed behind in Gaza to continue to use those funds to feed people. One of them was killed by Israel. But they're still working to feed the people of Gaza, and this is a second fundraiser for that effort. You can find it in the description. Right up at the top, we'll put it. So if you have any extra money and you'd like to donate to this cause, Gaza Bakery, feeding displaced families. We have some footage of those efforts if you don't mind pulling that up, Bradley.
And while you're doing that, I mean, October 28th, 2023, The Guardian, airstrikes on Gaza bakeries add to catastrophic food shortages. That was October 28th, 2023.
Yep.
Al Jazeera, Gaza bakeries targeted and destroyed by Israeli air attacks. That was November 2nd, 2023. It's not gotten better since then, obviously.
Here's some of the footage of the food distribution. see. And then it was the kids on the beach is what I was. Yeah, here we go. This was the food distribution piece.
It's hell.
We just have a little bit more short footage here. This is the distribution, yeah.
القدس وعكا نحن إلى يافا.
That was a photo of a kid saying thank you. And then this is on the beach. By the way, Israel was just bombing here 2 days ago.
العمر يوم فلتحيا مخلدا ذكرى سعيدة.
So that's where your donations would be going. So if you can just share it, even if you don't have the money, if you could share it to family or friends or on social media, it's a big help. There are people starving to death, so and you can just see how they've
to correct you, but being starved to death by Israel.
Yeah.
And as you can see in even some of the first footage we showed, it's very chaotic. Everyone there is clearly very desperate for sustenance, very desperate for safety. These are people who are lost not by their own volition. They're lost because Israel has made it so that they are lost.
Yeah.
And so
that is a intentional product. The conditions those people are an intentional product toward an end, which is for those people to give up hope about living in Gaza.
Yep.
And that's the real anti-terrorism being conducted in that. And anybody that is unclear about that is lying about an active Holocaust to you.
646-257-3920. We will talk more, of course, about Gaza in the not fun part of the fun half, but that's what we will promise you. Basically, is every day the show tries to make sure that we're giving you an update and making it clear what our tax dollars are doing. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Okay, Emma, please.
Well, I feel that my voice is sorely lacking on the majority report.
Wait, look, Sam is unpopular.
I do deserve a vacation at Disney World. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome Emma to the show.
It is Thursday.
I think you need to take over for Sam.
Yes, please.
No. I'm gonna pause you right there.
Wait, what?
You can't encourage Emma to live like this, and I'll tell you why. She was offered a tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. She was offered a tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
What?
Tour, sushi, and poker.
Tim's upset.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. She was offered a tour, sushi, and
that's what we call it in the biz.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Right.
Tour, sushi, and poker.
We're gonna get demonetized.
I just think that what you did to Tim Pool was mean.
Free speech.
That's not what we're about here. Look at how sad he's become now. You shouldn't even talk about it because I think you're responsible.
I probably am in a certain way, but let's get to the meltdown here.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Oh my God.
Tour,
wow.
Sushi.
I'm sorry, I'm losing my fucking mind.
She was offered a tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Logic.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. Boy. Tour.
I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid.
Tour.
I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid.
Had this debate 7,000 times.
A little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid.
Tour. I'm losing my fucking mind.
Some people just don't understand.
So I'm not trying to be a dick right now, but like,
I absolutely think the U.S. should be providing me with a wife and kids.
That's not what we're talking about here.
Okay, all right. It's not a fun job. Tour? That's a real thing. That's real thing. Real thing. Willy Wonka tour? That's a real thing. That's real thing. Real thing. What's that offered a tour? That's a real thing. That's real thing. Real thing. That's a tour? A real thing. That's real thing. Real thing. What's that offered a tour?
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Rogan has done it again.
That offered a tour? That's a real thing. That's poker with the boys. I think he might be blowing it out of proportion. Real thing. That's poker with the boys. That offered a tour? That's a real thing. That's poker. Let's go, Joey. Tour? Sushi and poker with the boys.
Take it easy, Doug.
Tour? Sushi and poker.
Things have really gotten out of hand.
Sushi and poker with the boys.
Delusional.
Tour?
Deluded.
Sushi.
You don't have a clue as to what's going on. Live YouTube.
Sam has like the weight of the world on his shoulders. Sam doesn't want to do this show anymore. It was so much easier when the Majority Report was just you. You were happy.
Let's change the subject.
Right.
Rangers and Knicks doing great.
Now shut up. I don't want people saying reckless things on your.
Thesis. I guess I should hand the main mic to you now.
You are to the right of me on foreign policy.
We already fund Israel, dude. Are you against that?
That's a tougher question I have an answer to.
Incredible theme song.
Hi, Bumbler.
Emma Vigeland, absolutely one of my favorite people. Actually, not just in the game, like period.
We are back. It is the fun half. We'll open up the phone line soon, but let's just get to this here. So, you see things on social media of the horror of the genocide in Gaza that Israel is committing with our tax dollars, and you see things, of course, that we can't show on this program, like beheaded babies because of, like, say, bombs just exploding their bodies into pieces.
Yeah, and there's some debate about how much that's healthy. I imagine it's not healthy to look at that stuff. But I also think it's better that this stuff is able to be exposed than previously previous times, because we should know what's happening and what Israel is doing to Palestinians.
And I don't say this to make a naive point, but I think I've spoken about this with you guys before, but I think there are sometimes people when I talk about work or whatever, and they're like, oh my God, like, how do you like consume so much news every day and all these things going on? And to me, it's like, I try to decenter myself because, like, as much as it's hard to consume this stuff, it is much more difficult for the people experiencing the things that we're covering. So, like, this is, I think, as much as it might be painful to do so, even for some traumatic to do so, triggering to do so, I think it is important to decenter myself in it, and also realize that it's very important to bear witness regardless.
And it pales compared to the actual trauma, which is what this little girl's going through, for instance.
Yeah. So Al Jazeera put this out. This is Sama Tabil. She's 8 years old, and she has lost her hair out of fear of being killed. And this is her talking about that. I'll read over the Israelis from the hospital while we were sleeping bombed the second floor of the hospital. Suddenly, 2 days later, my hair started falling and I ended up like this. She's 8 years old. She suffered a near-death experience. And she believes she lost her hair due to extreme stress caused by shelling and gunfire. I lost my hair out of fear. This is how I looked before the war. If you could just go back for a sec. Even before this. I lost my hair out of fear. Yeah. This is how I looked before the war. This is what my hair looked like. My hair was long and I used to style it and go out to play with the girls. Do you see how pretty I was? So, yeah. Anxiety, fear and depression. Some of the trauma. Of course, there are 1.2 million children in need of mental health and sociological or psychosocial support. Okay, so
and Al Jazeera, of course, says that started before October 7th too.
You think, like, there's just these little things that hit you when you think about it, right? Like, little girls love to braid each other's hair.
A dad going to get birth certificates.
Here is on the other side of the fence footage of the Israeli soldier accused of participating in gang rape at the Said Teman prison camp. One of the people accused of potentially raping that Palestinian prisoner to death. There have also been accusations via Human Rights Watch that corroborate these accounts, including some rape with the barrel of a automatic gun that has been reported. This is the guy. He's now a celebrity in Israel. Like on the other side, we see that girl who has no hair anymore due to fear. He's a celebrity, the rapist. There's no captions here, but it just gives you a sense they're doing a fun skit in Israel with the rapist. Neon colors and some fun horn music. They're gonna really enjoy advertising this guy.
הערב בתוכניתנו לוחם כוח 100 מאיר בן שטרית שהתמודד עם הנוח'בות בשדה תימן ועכשיו מתמודד עם האשמות קשות וכולנו רוצים לשמוע מה יש לו להגיד וגם יהיה... תגיד לי, למה אתה עומד ככה?
כי גם אני יכול להיות כוח 100, תראה את הגודל שלך.
אתה?
לא בדיוק 100.
לא.
אז 30.
30 בקושי, הערב 10:30, תבואו.
פתחי את שי, הערב ב-10:30.
So you can catch that.
Like he's Paul Rudd.
You can catch that on Israel's Channel 4, which is a favorite of Netanyahu's.
Evil country.
Channel 14, actually.
Sorry, Channel 14. Yes, Channel 14. Okay. Yeah, I mean, like, I just think that juxtaposition, I mean, within miles of one another. You know, you see those parties on the beach, too, in Israel, and Pew Research has some polling, right? That showed that 72% of Israelis believe that videos of images showing graphic violence in the war should be censored. 59% to 30% think that posts expressing sympathy with civilians in Gaza should be censored. So that's how you can have a channel like that making a celebrity out of a rapist, war criminal.
Yeah, but we're supposed to, I guess, support the Holocaust of Gaza because they elected Hamas, because they're radical. The worst part of this, or worst part of Harris's speech was the repetition of the silence without words rape bullshit, which was, we now know, insanely just objectively projection by a Israel that uses rape as policy. As the again, we've never denied that instances of rape could have happened on October 7th and probably did.
We denied the systemic nature, which is now evident
policy.
in Israel's...
exactly.
I mean,
also called for actual investigations, which can't be conducted under, like, say, ethnic cleansing condition, or when you're not looking into, let's say, things like the Hannibal Directive or something like that. But yeah. Right. M16, and that guy's on a reality show now, looking like a tough guy. And that's what there's bipartisan support for in this country. It's especially among America's leadership. It's disgusting. The American people are catching up to it, but America's leadership loves that stuff.
Opening up the phone lines now, 646-257-3920.
And sorry, just one thing. I say the political leadership. It's also the press. It's also the New York Times, and to maybe lesser extent, but still the Washington Post, and all these cable networks that have a conspiracy of silence about all of this stuff. And they've had it for months and months and years. And it's because the people that control make the editorial decisions on this like that. They want it to happen. They want Gazans to be as without hope as Bibi Netanyahu does. So that's why you don't actually hear at Zionists them criticizing Netanyahu. That's all bullshit. That's all lies. The supposed concern about Netanyahu is just something they say to make themselves feel better in that moment. None of it is sincere.
Desert Lefty saying, catch the murder rape variety show on Channel 14 right after Seinfeld.
It's just what, some of the interesting juridical quite ideas that you have in a ethno-state about a religion. Like, for instance, if you rape a non-Jew, is it rape?
Right. Sage Sunday, on top of all the other more transparent horrors and devastation in this ongoing genocide, it's important to highlight the physical toll PTSD and 24/7 life or death ongoing stressors have on the human body. Awful stuff.
Yep, that's why Zionists would love to just talk about the 40,000 people that we can documentedly say are dead, because a lot of people are walking dead.
Right now, it's 3 times that conservatively, probably. Cole from Michigan, right? MI is Michigan. Emma, I feel like you only read my messages critical of you guys. Just want to say how great of a job you're doing. Take care of yourselves. P.S. I'm in Michigan. So I keep saying Missouri. Gosh, I am.
Mo is Missouri.
I have sometimes my eyes get in front of my mouth when I'm reading, right? And I skip things by accident. So, and I'm bad at those abbreviations for some reason, especially the M. Like MO is Missouri, but it could be Montana.
Missouri, yeah. Montana would make sense. Yeah, MT is Montana.
I always find MO a little weird because it's not the first 2 letters.
Right.
And it's not really there's not really a O sound in Missouri.
Yes.
And then you would think maybe it's MN for Montana, but MN is Minnesota.
I
and
know.
MT is Montana.
Disgusting people. Chris Burdick, if we're going to keep calling this a war and not a genocide, we should be sending arms to Palestinians as well, just to maintain credibility.
That was Emma's point on Tim Pool.
Yeah. Greg from Arkansas, so glad Emma's with us and not an ESPN contributor. She could do both, honestly, but they don't deserve her like we do. I don't think I'd like that workplace. I have a friend that worked at ESPN.
Where would you work if you had to get a sports contract?
I don't think I could. I mean, I think that, like, honestly, that industry that industry is almost in worse shape than we're in. Like, it's so concentrated and it's so corporatized, and then like all the upstarts are just right-wing shows like Outkick and Barstool.
And none of it's actually reporting anymore too. It's like real. It's like the same thing you have with TV journalism, where we're giving like Brian Williams $3 million and firing the entire reporting staff. It's the same thing. Let's give, what's that kicker's name that does the show on ESPN?
Oh my God, McAfee.
Let's give him like $3 million to get drunk on air every day and fire everybody.
But that I think is, to your point, Matt, the similar consolidation where it's like 2 to 5 people have the most amount of money for being commentators, and they're mostly just reactionary people who yell at their panelists, and everybody else is kind of toiling in the underclass. Other than that,
Garrett's from Nova. Blocking. We're talking football, not basketball. Okay, Dikembe. No. Blocking is football. Fantasy brain ruining people's perceptions about what a tight end's role is. Wholesome Joe, don't know if you've ever looked, but if you go to the official subreddit for Dave Rubin, all the comments are people shitting on him for being a total idiot. That's so funny.
Oh, that's been true for a while. Joe Rogan, did you say Joe?
His Rubin's Reddit.
Rubin's has been that way for a long time. Joe Rogan's is kind of getting that way.
Oh, that's funny. Calling from an 810 area code. Who's this? Where you calling from?
Hi, is this me?
This is you. If you don't mind taking us off speaker and just telling us who you are, where you're calling from.
This is Dakota calling from Michigan.
Dakota from Michigan. Thanks for calling in.
Well, I want to say thank you to you guys first, because I've been tuning into the show probably since 2015, and, just so happy for everything that you guys always do. And, without the show, I'm sure a lot of other people would fall down a right-wing rabbit hole. So I just want to say thanks for that first.
Thank you so much.
And I just want to say, from Michigan, from where I'm sitting, it doesn't seem like Harris really has all the support that the media is trying to say that she has. At least not as tight as I think it is. I'm sure, I don't know.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell, it doesn't seem very, nobody I know it's anecdotal, but nobody I know is excited about Harris whatsoever. I know Democrats, I know a lot of Republicans in this area. I travel all around the state, and I I can tell you, I see very, very few signs for Harris. I'm just not sure that the excitement is there yet.
What's your area typically like, and is there any Trumpy stuff?
I mean, well, I live in Lapeer County, and that went red on the last 2 cycles, I believe.
Okay.
And it's a pretty red area. I mean, I travel all over the place, though. I go to Port Huron, which is a border town with Canada.
Right.
And there's a whole bunch of Trump everywhere, but not a whole lot of Harris.
How would you say the Trump enthusiasm compares relative to 2020 and 2016?
I will give you that. The enthusiasm is not nearly there. I mean, especially compared to 2016. I mean, if I compare anything to 2016, the enthusiasm was all the way for Hillary Clinton. I mean, there was plenty of signs everywhere for both sides, but definitely more for, Clinton, at least from where I was. But now it's the only people who even are comfortable talking about their political opinions are Trump people. So I guess that could also be a problem.
Interesting.
Well, something to monitor. I mean, that's the thing that can potentially move her if she's seeing some of those that reflected in polling, right? So,
I mean, that's the thing is, Democratic Party didn't get out, as you mentioned, under states' rights until Truman needed to beat Dewey in '48, and they smashed the glass. So we'll see.
Appreciate the call. Thank you.
Oh, one more thing. I just wanted to say happy belated birthday to Michael Brooks. He was definitely one of my biggest inspirations for, getting into this space.
Oh, that's really sweet. Thanks so much. Have a good one. Bye.
You as well. Thank you.
Oh, there he goes. Yeah, it was cool to see Jamal Bowman reposted one of Michael's old videos the other day on his social media. So
Yeah, what was that? Lafayette?
It was the classic viral video about Israel, right? But
because that's how you know Bowman's a real one.
Bowman
We've
is a
always
real
known,
one.
but Bowman is a real one.
I'm telling you, I'd interviewed him and met him in person, and like he's just somebody where it's like, okay, yeah, like this is a sincere human being.
Yeah. If he could beat Torres,
I would love it.
it would be like it'd be like Lula getting back in power.
I would absolutely support in this context like a Mondaire Jones-esque movement.
Oh God!
Of Bowman to Mondaire's district if he beats Lawler.
Oh, 100%.
Or
not Mondaire.
Oh, excuse me,
Richie
to Torres. Moving
but,
further into the Bronx to primary Torres. Exactly.
Yeah, because Mondaire Jones is doing his dance in part because he is in that district is in a similar situation to the old Bowman
Is
district.
Bowman Mondaire Jones is eyeing another district because we should salt the earth wherever.
It's the one that Sean Patrick Maloney lost.
Yeah, so I think that so he ran in the district, the Lower Manhattan district, where with Carlino Rivera and Yulin Yu, and that's what kind of where Dan Goldman consolidated and won, and is now running in Lawler's district, which, as you mentioned, Emma, is Sean Patrick Maloney's old one, which reportedly. If I'm remembering correctly, Maloney gave him basically the blessing to run in that district, and
he did.
And Mondaire said
no. Mondaire could have run against Maloney in the primary, but he chose against it and moved from his own district to run in New York 10
and give us Dan
and
Goldman.
lost, and he split. Yeah, it's my freaking representative now. I could have had Yulin New instead of freaking Dan Goldman.
Exactly.
When I call and be like, can you please stop supporting genocide? And they're like, this is a call for the campaign, not our office. I'm
Genocide Dan.
Yeah.
They're like, sorry, we're going through a tunnel, Emma. I can't hear you anymore.
Oh, yes. Must have called the mobile campaign bus.
Torres and Goldman would be nice to get those guys
Yes.
out.
And my understanding is that Goldman, I ended up in the primary voting for the ceasefire candidate. I'm sorry, I forget that person's name, but it was just basically like somebody who barely, I think, campaigned, but was running just on that platform. And Goldman underperformed in the primary, even with those guys there. So there's appetite. I think Yulin could get back in there.
I mean, she'd be a massive improvement.
Massive improvement. There's no reason that a deep blue Brooklyn district should have a guy like that as the representative. Juniper J, it's the fun half. Where's drunk Bill Maher grooming kids on camera? Wait, hold. Desert Lefty, don't forget MS is for Mississippi and ME for Maine. There are too many M
Maine's
states.
the tough one for me.
Yes, yeah. Let's get a change.org petition going. Rin Edwards says, Emma, have you seen anything about Harris being offered Green Party support if they back conditioning aid and Harris turned it down? I saw that isn't that what Jill Stein claimed?
What I saw, and maybe there's someone more formally write this out, but a Green Party person saying that they were negotiating with the Nura Erakat to have her come on, but one of her conditions was if the Democrats conceded something like an arms embargo, that the Green Party acknowledged that and then endorsed them because of that. And the Green Party said, well, we kind of want to work for this 5%, and we don't want to mess up our great campaigns in 2024 and 2028. And I would just say, as somebody who's not a Green Party and doesn't really respect the Green Party, although occasionally some people can do good work in it, it would be way more impressive to me if you made the Democrats concede an arms embargo or conditioning aid than whatever the hell you're doing to get 5%, not doing that. So
good job by Nora Erakat, because that's like the smart play there. And the fact that they refused, it kind of just shows how unserious they are.
Well, maybe they'll get that 5% and everything will change.
Right.
We've only been waiting for it for fucking 3 decades.
Yeah. And they're it's Jill. I mean, I'm going to be honest. It's Jill Stein's. It's an attention vehicle for her as opposed to building the parties from the ground
and
up.
not really a Democratic Party in itself either. So I think I frankly I think it'd be better if a actual socialist third party, if people started putting their attention towards something like that, even if it's PSL, which also has I think maybe some issues. I don't know, but it's at least socialist and not this sort of BS that I'm sorry if I sound a little bit over it, but I've been seeing this for every election I've paid attention to in my life, and it's like people wasting their time.
Demian, my wife heard the Emma Jordy song and said, why is that guy talking about jorts and sushi? I didn't hear the jorts part. Okay, let's turn here to this Jesse Waters thing. So Jesse Waters is under fire, but it was fire that he welcomed because he's been struggling to gain traction in that 8 p.m. time slot that had been previously filled by Tucker Carlson, which is a really low bar because we saw how Bill O'Reilly and Tucker just faded into obscurity quite quickly after losing their jobs due to different things they did wrong. Bill O'Reilly with sexual misconduct, Tucker Carlson for repeatedly lying about the results of the election and making claims that resulted in a lawsuit by Dominion and others against Fox News. And they just kind of were like poof out of the public consciousness except for their weirdos, because what's really humbling and fun to see is that the machine makes the man, not the other way around for these right-wingers. But Jesse's so bad at this that he hasn't been able to yet, even though he's held on to this slot for a bit, even been able to achieve their level of success on this front. So what does he do? Well, he evokes basically a sexual assault joke. He did learn from Bill O'Reilly. That was the show where he would go on the street, do man on the street stuff, including just go to Chinatown and make fun of Chinese people.
Look at these people in their language capabilities.
Right. It was like shockingly racist, but I guess not so shocking. So he's learning from the best here. On the 5, the daytime show he appears on, he made this comment about Kamala Harris.
Well, Joe Biden spends this week at a beach in Delaware. And with Harris nowhere to be seen today, President Trump was at Arlington National Cemetery honoring the 13 heroes killed during the Biden administration's botched Afghanistan withdrawal 3 years ago today. Trump later going to Detroit and hammering Kamala's role in the chaos.
Caused by Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, the humiliation in Afghanistan set off the collapse of American credibility and respect all around the world. Every crisis Kamala and Biden have created on the world stage can turn around very quickly, and we're going to turn it around, but only we need strong...
I like the idea that the withdrawal from Afghanistan and not just the the decades-long occupation of Afghanistan. But anyway,
and I should say that this is the lead up to Waters' comments, but Trump deliberately set up this agreement with the Taliban that it had like a 14-month timer so that he could walk back the deal if he got reelected. He struck this deal at the beginning of 2020. He could walk it back if he got reelected.
Which is what he's implying he would have done now.
Exactly, because he didn't want the PR from it. But Biden, honestly, in a move that was righteous, said like, okay, we've been putting this off for 20 years. For 20 years, I guess, when he did it in 2021, basically. We've been putting this off for 20 years. So I'll take the PR hit. And he did take it, right? We need to withdraw and end this occupation and this war in Afghanistan. And the Taliban did take over, but that was because there was a puppet government there, and it was a matter of time when the United States withdrew. So Trump set this up to mess with Biden, so he's trying to keep running on it. But I have my doubts about how salient the 2021 Afghanistan withdrawal is on like what people are going to do in voting for Kamala Harris in 2024. But I digress. That's the setup here.
On the world stage can turn around very quickly, and we're going to turn it around. But only we need strong leadership. We'll get the resignations of every single senior official who touched the Afghanistan calamity to be on my desk at noon on Inauguration Day.
It's also been 3 years since Kamala boasted about being the, quote, last person in the room when Joe Biden decided to go ahead with the Afghanistan withdrawal. Jesse, people consider you to be the last person in the room because that's because everybody keeps trying to ditch you.
Yeah, they just left. Right. But you understand the reference, Greg.
Yes.
Is that she was somehow involved in the decision, and it was her wise guidance that he was relying upon. Listen, she was the last in the room in Afghanistan. She was the border czar, and she was the deciding vote on trillions of inflationary spending. On those three most popular Joe Biden items, she's basically like a conjoined twin. You cannot separate the two. And let's talk about foreign policy. What is her foreign policy? And this is where the president has his most impact. You have a lot of room to maneuver there as commander-in-chief. We don't know who she is. We don't know what she believes. She's going to get paralyzed in the Situation Room while the generals have their way with her. Right now,
Jesse,
Jesse,
I don't like that.
Figuratively,
Take
again,
it back.
Have their way with her, control her, not in a sexual way. You're now having F-16s getting sent over to Ukraine, and Ukraine's actually now invading Russia, and you're going to have her as commander-in-chief? That's nuts.
Okay. So Juniper J makes a good point, right? Saying if 12 service members died during the Afghanistan withdrawal, I would wonder how many would have died in the past 3 years if we had stayed. They're not concerned with soldiers and Marines dying. Yeah. That even offended Judge Janine.
You're Dana Perino go, Jesse Waters? Like even freaking
look,
Bush comms person Dana Perino clutching her pearls.
We are here to validate and sort of massage your misogyny, but please don't just say
Stop
something
making our
like
job
she's going
so
to be
hard.
like raped in front of us. Give us something to work with, Jesse.
Yeah.
Also, inflationary spending, that's what we're blaming inflation on, is the checks. Like how
There's no data that backs that up. We already know. We've gone through what persistent inflation and things like rent and food is related to. It's price gouging. It's reflected in the quarterly earnings reports. The supply chain inflation from COVID has long since subsided. It's now gouging at this point. It's telling, right, that right-wingers flock to this kind of attack so easily, right? It's essentially a rape fantasy. Like when AOC got first elected to Congress and she was running on abolishing ICE, that was something that she talked about. There was a Border Patrol secret chat that depicted photos of her getting sexually assaulted by Trump and others that circulated. I've seen some of those images. It's disgusting. And it's the go-to, right? Like if a woman is powerful, that's how they think. Like what they think is funny for the audience is to see her getting taken down a peg. And how do you get taken down a peg? Well, you get overpowered. And what's the ultimate expression of power? That's what rape is. Like rape is a crime, not of, of course, like there's sexual, like there's a sexual act or like there's, a release in some way for the rapist, but in the bulk of it is about power, right? It's about exercising power over somebody who has no control or is in a victimized position or in a powerless position and imposing that on them. And so we're going to see more and more of this as Harris continues to run, because that's the only way, like, that's how they want to joke about a powerful woman. They want to joke about they think it's funny to tear her down by showing her, like, you want to feel really powerless, this is how.
It's a den of sexual harassers, Fox News. It always has been, and anybody who's been there for long enough is guilty, almost certainly, of looking the other way on some pretty horrible stuff. So it's interesting for Jesse Waters to go so far that even some of the women at that network have to be like, Jesse, we're trying to turn the page a little bit on the Roger Ailes thing. But ultimately, that's what the only thing that they, like, guys like Jesse Water know, or Greg Gutfeld or whoever, know will work, is to lean into that sort of rancid crap.
Yeah. I mean, look, calling them sexual harassers, like, let's be fair here. I mean, Jesse Waters is a married man. Jesse Waters married this his colleague. Well, he was married at the time that they met. I mean, she was 25 and he had kids, but he married her, and they had this nice meet cute where Jesse Waters admitted on the 5 that he, quote, let the air out of now wife Emma's tires when he was, quote, trying to get her to date him. She couldn't go anywhere. She needed a lift, I said. Hey, you need a lift? She hopped right in the car, said Waters in his story about how they got acquainted, drawing laughter and questions from the rest of the group. Emma was 29 at the time. She didn't know the story before her husband told it on air. Now she does, he told his colleagues. On the 5, joked Greg Gutfeld, you're basically the Zodiac killer.
No, Emma, sorry.
Wait, is that...
To be clear, she's 29 at the date of pub.
No, I know. I said 25 before. Yeah.
Oh, so got it, 25.
Yeah.
I thought I heard 29 both times. My bad.
If that's true that she didn't know the story before her husband told it on air,
I'm just going to let that speak for itself.
Okay.
So he married her in 2019. So she's 34 now? Yeah.
Actually, my parents met at a party. Somebody had done that joke of pulling the chair out for my mom, and she fell down, and my dad helped her up. Now, imagine if 25 years later, my dad's like, oh, by the way, I told that guy to pull that chair out, and I never... That would be a bit of an eyebrow raiser.
It wasn't actually a chivalrous moment where I was helping you up.
It was meticulously planned.
I chose to humiliate you in front of everybody and make you fall on your ass so that you would come to me because you were feeling maybe like you needed help in that moment. I manipulated
actually,
you.
that you know how your heart rate rose to like about 150 beats per minute when you went into the parking garage and realized your tires were slashed? That was actually my plan because I thought you'd be more susceptible to, say, like getting into my Range Rover.
Yeah.
It's like a more malevolent, like Nathan Fielder, The Rehearsal.
Yes.
Joke. Sort of like, I actually did slash your tires.
Did you see? So Gutfeld and him needle each other there. This is another aside, but I was looking up this story last night about his wife. So I was on Jesse Waters' Wikipedia page. Gutfeld had once said, quote, on his show, he made a joke about Waters, a new study shows half of men with thinning hair will avoid socializing, but then some will just cover it up, and then showed an image of Jesse Waters. So he's basically implying that Waters has a toupee. And
It's got went the Turkish route.
Yeah, and like you just see how like they're going back and forth there. They are men that, like, Jesse Waters is in his late 40s. I don't know how old Greg Gutfeld is, but this is literally how I observed frat brothers like talk to each other when I was 19 or 20 years old. Like they don't really know how to say they love each other or whatever, or they're in competition. I guess it manifests itself in different ways. But if they're, they don't like each other, it's just insults constantly, and then everybody laughs. It's like what they do at Barstool, basically. But you guys are old.
I nailed it on Gutfeld. He's about to turn 60 on September 12th.
Yeah, he'll be 60 in like literally a week and a half. and
Memento mori, buddy.
And Jesse Waters is 46.
Okay, so like men negging each other about like their physical appearance on air. I mean, just grow up. Jesse Waters did not stop there. We talked about how he is consciously reviving birtherism, because it worked. Well, it actually did work the first time.
No.
Trump got elected in 2016. It was a racist conspiracy theory about Obama, and now they're trying it again with Harris.
These the sort of low common denominator, easily understood by people who aren't paying attention type of things are useful in politics. So, unfortunately, there's a lot of racists out there who'll be like, what? He doesn't have a birth certificate? That's crazy.
But I don't know if it's as useful when it's not novel. Like when
I
it's
think you can overdo it.
Like, I mean, Trump's doing this with he tried with crazy Kamala at first. Now he's going with Comrade Kamala, which I think is at least a little funnier. But he'd been reusing or recycling some of the stuff he used for Hillary Clinton, where he's like, woman, okay, I can do this. It starts to be like, okay, I've seen this movie before, but let's see how Jesse Waters tries to bring birtherism back for Kamala.
Trump has to do the thing Democrats have been trying not to do. Tell us who the real Kamala Harris is. A weak fraud, fixated on being exposed, instead of fixated on you, the voter.
What?
Did you know that Kamala Harris didn't grow up in Oakland, as she always said she did?
Where did this strength and passion
By the way,
come
she
from
wrote about this in her book. So
in this daughter of middle-class Oakland?
Kamala Harris grew up in Berkeley, the People's Republic of Berkeley. Berkeley, the most insanely liberal precinct in America. Her birth certificate lists an apartment right next to Berkeley's campus. It's a half block south of People's Park, which is basically ground zero for every single radical protest movement. Kamala attended Berkeley public schools and was even bused to Berkeley public schools. Remember? That little girl was me. If you lie about where you grew up...
Okay, so she's lying about her... Why did she have to be bused to another school? If she was in this community that was so, liberal, elitist, wealthy, why would she have to be bused to another school? It's an interesting thing he skips over there. She moved around a ton as a kid. That's true. Her parents were professors, and so she lived in a variety of different places. But I think a lot of her childhood was in this area. At one point, she did move to Montreal when she was 12. But this early part of her life, I mean, this is pretty well documented. But keep going.
Public schools and was even bused to Berkeley public schools. Remember? That little girl was me. If you lie about where you grew up, which is at the core of who you are, people can't trust you. Maybe one day she'll be asked about it. Or maybe not.
Remember how J.D. Vance is fucking from Ohio and acts like he's from West Virginia or something?
Where he summered. If you lie about your name, what else could people lie about? How many times has J.D. Vance changed his name? Because I think the ticker is up to 3. Yeah, it's so silly. I mean, I don't really know. I guess he pulled up her birth certificate there. What are we supposed to glean from that now? Because her parents were both immigrants, that she wasn't actually
They're
born in
hiding
the
that
United
they met at Berkeley, which is famously a huge part of their biography.
Right. They're also, attempting to say how could she have been middle class with her parents being professors? First of all,
kind of middle class, and especially in expensive cities.
Yeah. How much do you think professors make? Secondly, I don't know if her dad was living with them or in her life at this period. So it may have been
is they
one
traveled
income.
to Jamaica occasionally to visit, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know it might have been one singular income with her mother, right? Her dad's alive and it is not, I think, a part of her life. So I'm not exactly sure when that happened, but yeah, I mean, her story is well documented at this point. But if you have immigrant parents and those immigrant parents didn't come over through Ellis Island and are Irish or Italian. Although if you ask J.D. Vance, that caused a lot of ethnic strife back in the day then too, according to him. Then, it's just going to get questioned because this is like, this is how they apply, what they perceive as technical language to justify their racism.
Yeah, you know where Kamala was born?
What?
In Oakland. So at the hospital in Oakland. So it's kind of like how people say, "Where are you born?" Like I was raised in Mandan, but I would say Bismarck because that's where the hospital is.
Right. Lying. What else would you lie about, huh?
But that's like the line. It was like she's like born to the Oakland middle class. Gopalan was also known for her work ethic and dedication to her students. This is her mother. According to Los Angeles Times, after she had back surgery, Gopalan worked from an adjustable mattress in her Oakland apartment. So being a child of middle class Oakland, I think just objectively true. It turns out. So.
Well, okay. Fox News may be not sending their best to investigate the Harris Walls ticket. But
is King Cantona right? Sorry to cut you off there, but did the birth certificate literally say Oakland and Alameda County? I didn't even look that closely at it, but...
Well, typical, because
Sure.
you'll believe anything. So, Newsmax is on the important stories here. There's a lot that Tim Walz has covered up in his record, I mean, man, he wasn't the coach of that national or state championship football team. He was the assistant coach, okay?
He was merely the defensive coordinator.
Which is like... I mean...
I'm sorry. That you could, that's a coach. That's a coach. You coached a football team to a state championship. If you're even the linebackers coach, which he was prior to being defensive coordinator, I'd still say you coached a team to the state championship. Now, whether that's a head coach, defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator, for my mind, are basically as important as a head coach.
Yes.
No, Matt, when you win a championship, only one guy gets a ring.
Only one guy gets to call himself coach.
That's right.
Everybody else, if you don't say that you're an assistant coach, again, it's disqualifying for the vice presidency. You know what else is disqualifying? Dog lies. Here we go. This is how two different Newsmax hosts ended their segment about Tim Walz and his dog. They wanted to get this out there, just a little bit of fan service to have people to look out for this story. And we'll tell you what this big lie was after we hear from these guys. This is Rob Finnerty, and then next the other Rob Schmidt.
By the way, did you hear Tim Walz with the dog situation on Dog Day a day ago?
Two scouts.
two different dogs. They both have the same name. I don't think he's got a dog.
Just like he's the George Foreman of dogs.
That's good. I like that. All right, gentlemen. Thank you. Appreciate it. Doug Collins, Jack Kingston. Lots more. By the way,
I don't know what the George Foreman
I don't
of
get
dogs
that.
means.
What's the George Foreman thing mean?
Let's let them craft this argument here. This is another Tim Walz segment. Another Newsmax segment. Did Tim Walz lie about his dog?
And just a few months later, somebody discovered another tweet about another dog named Scout. Except it's a totally different dog. So which one's Scout? The campaign had no answer for us.
All right, pause this.
What happened?
See the dog named Scout on there. I want that screen grab up for it. Keep this up. This is the evidence that Newsmax is showing us. Tim Walz there with Scout. They word search Scout. Good job, Newsmax producers.
This is the crack investigative team here.
In I guess that's 2022. So the same year, you see Scout, black dog. On the right, beige dog, where he says that he has gone to the dog park and Scout
And let's just give the full
himself.
quote here. The first one says, sending a special birthday shout out to our favorite pup, Scout. And there he is with the black dog. And the next one, couldn't think of a better way to spend a beautiful fall day than at the dog park. I know Scout enjoyed it.
The dog park where notably, famously, no other dogs congregate.
Well, okay, so that's the thing is the Hollywood elites just have a Rolodex of crisis actors. I mean, actors.
Even including crisis dog actors.
Exactly. And they must have just not done their due diligence, and they forgot the color for Scout.
I mean, I would say get the breed right. How hard is it to get another black lab?
And how do we know that that a governor from a neighboring state didn't come over in between the two Scout photographs and assassinated the first Scout, and then they got Scout 2.0.
Are we sure this
is
isn't
Mulligan Scout?
Are we sure this isn't a looper or a replicant situation? Are we sure that's even the same Tim Walz?
We're not sure about the multiverse element of this, and I think that Newsmax should look into it. But there is a little bit of a hiccup in their thesis. This is the video that was accompanying that photo, where you can see Scout. Okay.
Okay, so
So there's the other dog he photographed himself with, who was not Scout. But I don't know.
So probably they posted that one because it was a nice picture of Tim Walz with the dog, and he did actually
Probably.
have fun with Scout. At
Who
the
just was
thing,
not
which
photographed.
but was in the video.
You know, I have I own 2 dogs. I'm actually wearing a shirt of one of my dogs right now,
Rosie.
So I'm familiar with barking patterns of dogs, and that dog was barking in Mandarin too.
And
so that's another confounding factor here, because we know how much of a cinephile
He does.
Tim Walz is, because he loves China so much.
So they call him CCP Walls.
Yeah, so it's interesting that we'd hear some Chinese dialect from that dog.
We know what this is, right? Though this is that same Republican thing where like Melania just copies Michelle Obama's speeches and stuff. This is they sunk Kristi Noem with the dog thing, or actually Kristi Noem kind of sunk herself with it. We need to do something on the dog front, because clearly that's what works. Because that's literally all the only way these people can think like normal humans is to sort of replicate something they've seen normal humans do.
And apparently, though, this is from Minnesota reporters. They were saying that they're doing the same thing, where they're just recycling ops that were used by the Minnesota Republicans when he was running for governor and trying to take them national. And you could just see how weak they are there as well.
Well, it's tough with Tony Lazzaro in prison. Google Tony Lazzaro St. Thomas Republicans if you need a little background on what kind of party you're dealing with the Minnesota Republicans.
Absolutely. Vegetable Sauce says, how can Walz and or his dog exist in both the past and the present? Liar. It is odd that we're witnessing that photo and video in the present. When you think about it. Will from Minnesota, got to rethink the MN now every time. Okay. The George Foreman references that he has multiple children named George. Oh, okay. That's really funny, though.
What a specific reference. Jesus Christ.
And I got to give it to the Newsmax guy. I did not know that about George Foreman, but that's a pretty funny factoid.
And probably doesn't have a hugely long shelf life to get that off, because I think like probably will be met with confusion.
Yes.
If people have to Google who even George Foreman is in the first place.
Christy says George Foreman has named all 5 of his sons George Foreman Jr. through 5. That's pretty amazing.
I wonder if CTE has anything to do with that.
Yeah. LaDrom James, George Foreman of dogs. I thought RFK Jr. was the one who liked a grilled dog. Wow. Meg MCA, one of our friends had 5 dogs over the years, all named Jason. She even had a vanity plate in the 80s that was named Jason. Her Housewives of New York, Carol, my girl, also named all her dogs Baby. So that's a thing, but dogs and cats. My Bourbon Gamer. I know they'll only ramp up when she finally posts some kind of policy, but it's fun to watch conservatives trying to attack Harris on literally anything they can come up with right now. Yes. Desert Lefty, bringing birtherism back is like bringing sexy back, but really, really not. 502 Drew. Jesse Waters strikes me as someone that the movie Porky's was a formative experience for in his young life.
It is true that like half the movies, comedies for guys that era are like the plot centers around tricking a woman to have sex with them without their consent.
Yeah. Dave from Jamaica, conservative dating sounds more like hunting. Kowalski from Nebraska, if you want to hear a bit on Project 2025 Agriculture 308. Oh, okay. I'll pick that up in a sec, Kowalski. But this was the one. Sam and Dave's Vacation says, bro, the Zodiac literally disconnected one of his victims' car batteries.
So maybe Gutfeld was also making a more specific reference.
Yep. Calling from a 308 area code. Who's this where you're calling from? I think I know.
Yeah, it is Kowalski from the, I guess, the state that is run by three very incompetent state officials.
Well, they're competent for their ends, right?
Well, Bob Evans, I know for sure, hates me because in 2018, when I was going to the Republican conventions, or the county conventions, that was the first time I had met him, and how those work is like, they would be separated by a couple hours, so you would go to like 4 or 5 in a day, and you'd do this for several days. So like we met at the first one, and he told me a little bit about how his main issue was voter fraud, and when they let me speak, I said I was going to get rid of unnecessary bureaucratic waste like investigating voter fraud that we have no evidence of existing. I mean, it was pretty funny. Like,
right.
He glared at me the whole time, but I mean, like, I'm twice as big as him, so, like, all you can do is glare. But, yeah, no, he's a moron. But he's a moron with power, like a chimpanzee with an AK-47.
That's disturbing image.
Dangerous. Yes. Well, speaking of disturbing images, I have been looking into Project 2025's agricultural section, and you know, it's so devastating. It would probably take me like a half hour to actually like go through most of it. So like, I'm not going to bore you with that many details, but a couple of the really big ones that I just wanted to highlight. Like, I'm actually considering making like a long form video on my YouTube channel for this, but one of the big ones is that they want to reduce the food stamps, which I think, you know, obviously they're evil, so they're going to, you know, try to starve children. But how they want to do this is about 41 million people roughly utilize food stamps. And the funny part is the numbers they used. They claim that the program was using just shy of 80 billion in 2020 when Trump was in charge. Now, those numbers came from February. They then claim under the Biden regime, only 2 short years later, that it was up to 125 million roughly, which was a huge increase. But there was this global pandemic that occurred that I know some people have missed,
right,
which may have caused some employment issues. So obviously there was a huge boost in that, which probably staved off a lot of hunger. So their idea is to reform that, and basically the plan would drop the recipients by half, which would be just catastrophic. Like, we would probably see like bone density problems if that happened. Basically federally mandate that you can't have free school lunches because it's unfair for the kids whose parents can't afford better lunches.
Mm-hmm.
The logic is, I'm pretty sure it's like you'd have to drink a lot of lead paint to find logic in that one. And then for more on the farmer side, they want to reform some of the subsidies. Now, a lot of people think that farmers just get like a check for growing corn. That's not really how it works. Most of the subsidies that you pay as taxpayers go towards crop insurance. One of the big ones is that for like broad disasters, like think hail the size of golf balls and wind going about 40, it's essentially a blender. Like, it'll shred a cornfield till it's nothing but stems, and it's essentially worthless. It's dead. Taxpayers foot about 60% of the insurance cost for that, and then the farmer picks up the rest. Now, this has been absolutely essential, especially now that disasters are getting worse and worse by the year. If this got implemented, it would essentially mean that farmers would lose a lot on the margins even further, which would lead to more rural flight, more consolidation of farms. This seems like it's literally designed to basically drain a farm of its wealth if it's not big enough to just stomach these losses, which would basically just go to help corporate ag outfits.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no. If you have a question, I've been rambling. So.
Well, no, I mean, can you? That makes sense, given what the Republicans, their how they favor basically these big corporations. But like, what's the top producers that are off the top of your head? What, like Monsanto, or who are the others?
Well, the big producers, it's kind of hard to actually, like, there are a few farms in most counties across the United States now that are like the biggest farms in the area, and this basically benefits them, and it would benefit people who rent land because, well, usually you pay your rents beforehand. A lot of agriculture these days, especially for smaller outfits, is just basically turning into like a rent problem. But some of the logic, though, like back to the cutting of the subsidies for the insurance, the thing that they address in there is that it is not fair for taxpayers to be subsidizing something that only benefits farmers. But food is a public good. There's actually a lot of literature on how farming can't realistically, like, from even a national security standpoint, shouldn't be risked in like normal market functions, because you can't change a lot from year to year. And once you plant your crop, the crop's planted. You can't switch to a different one. You can't, oh, corn's going to be low, I should plant wheat instead. Like, that's not an option. Like, the only way this whole system works is by the USDA giving people projections and trying to keep things stable. And then if prices drop off, you have disaster insurance. And then they try to hint to farmers to shift production in different ways, or bring in conservation programs if, like, the crop surpluses are just getting too massive and it's destroying the markets. All of this takes like a lot of care and manipulation to make sure it doesn't just collapse. And it just seems like everything they're calling for in here gets rid of that, trying to hand it over to pure market forces. And then you're going to end up with a situation like Argentina, which I don't know if anyone's paid attention. Yeah, they still produce a decent amount, but their farmers are all going broke because essentially landlords seize everything. It's an awful system.
Yeah, and one that benefits consolidation, I would imagine. So, all right, Kowalski, thanks for the update. Appreciate that sobering reminder.
Don't worry, none of this will happen because we're going to win, and even if we lose, this would be enough to spark a John Brown revolution.
Okay, well, stop making determinative predictions without knocking on wood. You understand how I feel about those kinds of things, right?
Kowalski, how's the AC in the combine today?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm not combining. I was baling hay, and that was in a tractor. And I mean, I drank enough water. We're good.
You're not gonna pass out and all of a sudden like drift into your neighbor's property.
No, I've had a neighbor who did that once. Only he hit a really large power pole. Got lucky. It kept driving away.
All right. Well, falling asleep at the wheel, or maybe having some fun on the tractor. Who knows? All right. See you later, Kowalski.
Yeah, he was drinking adult beverages. You all have a good one.
America, baby.
There we go. Yeah. I mean,
I have a big announcement, guys.
what's your big announcement?
Trump's new digital trading cards are out.
Okay.
Cool.
Can we watch the video? Can we watch the announcement
Yes.
video?
Yes. You get to watch this as a treat.
Let's see how how we're scamming people today. Good start to the video so far. Good still to begin things.
This is your favorite president, Donald J. Trump.
Hey!
With some very exciting news.
Nice to see you.
By popular demand,
No,
I'm
slap
doing
for
a
the
new
hugs.
series of Trump digital
Eat
trading
it up,
cards.
little
You all know what
piggies.
they are. We've had a lot of fun with them.
Oh my gosh.
Digital.
The America First collection. 50 all new stunning digital trading cards.
All
It's really
AI made.
something.
Can you
These
go
cards show
back?
me
I wanna
dancing and even me holding some Bitcoin.
I want to look at. Okay, so keep it here. First of all, he's just like trim and fit in all of these, but
He looks yeah.
so guys, you can get access to these digital trading cards really easily by taking a screenshot of your screen right now. Right now. No. No. There we go. So this is how, if you want to get access to these digital trading cards, limited edition apparently, there's another way to expand those limitations, and you can just literally just take a photo.
The one in the
no screenshots.
The one in the Captain America looks like Jimmy Johnson, not Trump, the former coach of the Miami Dolphins.
Oh, he does a little bit, yeah.
Go ahead. brother.
Dancing and even be holding some bitcoins.
See, that's Jimmy Johnson. That's not
It really is. It really is. This is him going to tell Jerry Jones that he doesn't have a ring anymore without him.
The beautiful thing about these trading cards, you don't have to pay any goddamn photographers for images of me for the rights.
Here's the best part. I'm doing great things for my Trump digital card collectors.
That's a great
First, there's the real physical Trump card.
Oh!
Purchase
Okay.
15 or more of my Trump digital trading cards, and we'll mail.
So you get one physical card if you get 15 digital cards?
Buy 15 of the things that we can reproduce infinitely for zero cost, and then we'll give you one of the paper things.
And,
that we
and the
print.
shipping is $9.99.
Shipping not included.
Tell you a beautiful physical trading card. It's really, I think, quite something. Each physical trading card has an authentic piece of my
Beautiful salesman.
suit that I wore for the presidential debate.
Oh.
And people are calling it
Game
the
worn.
knockout suit. I don't know about that, but that's what they're calling it.
Okay.
So
I don't know
we'll
if
cut
I've
up
heard that
the
before.
knockout suit, and you're going to get a piece of it.
Cutting out
and
piece
we'll
of his
be randomly
clothing?
autographing 5 of them.
He looks like a
collector's item. This is something.
Go back. He looks like ass in that picture, in the knockout suit.
This is like, honestly, if, you know, what...
Look at him, the AI version of the card versus the real version from the actual debate. He's all hunched over.
I'm sorry to spoil the movie Immaculate for people, but there's something where, like, involving the DNA of Jesus as it relates to the nail that was apparently found, that was nailed into
Not
his
really
hand on
found,
the
but
cross.
in the movie it was.
In the
apparently
movie,
found, yeah.
yes, in the movie.
Big news! We found it. We found the nail.
We found the nail. Honestly, like, why didn't Dan Brown come up with this? But, like, this is your version of that, guys. I mean, Trump is an avatar for Jesus Christ for the evangelical base.
You can clone
now you
Trump.
can have a piece of his suit. Perhaps he can start selling just like air when he breathes into a balloon, and then ship that across the country so people can inhale that as well.
Yeah, they can do. They should do the suit that he was in Pennsylvania too. Smell some of that
fierce
adrenaline sweat.
Yeah.
This item. This is something to give your family, your kids, your grandchildren.
A little
Number
felt.
2 is to purchase
Like a
75
felt
of
book.
my Trump digital trading cards, and you will also be invited to
Deposit.
join.
Who
me
is
for
that? Who is that?
Who's that on the right and who's that on the left?
Is that Ray Fiennes?
and
in
who's
the
that
middle?
in the center?
Is that Ray Fiennes playing Voldemort and Harry Potter?
Right, Voldemort as Donald Trump.
Behind his head is Professor Quirrell right there.
Okay,
Who are the? Yeah, and who is this man and woman? Are they? Is this Bitcoin? Is this Bitcoin Adam and Eve, or like a digital trading card Adam and Eve?
You're right. I mean, that is that's the first man and woman, and there he is, God in the middle.
a gala dinner at my beautiful country club in Jupiter, Florida. We really have
Not going to
tremendous
Jupiter, Florida.
dinners with my collectors. Have a lot of fun together. We're going to have a good time. I'm keeping my Trump digital trading cards at the same price of $99 each. We've done that right from the beginning.
Oh, what a great deal.
So go to
so pause it. So
Trump card-
$99 each. So you only need to spend, let me do the math quick, $1,500 on
For
digital
one
cards
physical.
for one physical card. Interesting. Well, hey, if you keep it in really good condition for about 100 years, you might be able to sell it as a collector's item for more than that. So it's actually a good investment.
So go to collecttrumpcards.com. It's really easy to buy. You just need an email address and a credit card or crypto. You know, they call me the crypto
Who is that? That looks,
president. I
pause
don't
it. Go back. That looks like Elon Musk. Like,
I mean,
like these aren't
they're all
remotely-
AI, by the way.
Exactly. Like none of them are actually him,
That
but like
does look like Elon.
it looks more like Elon.
I mean, it kind of looks like young John Voight.
It does.
Go ahead a little bit more. The
No
next guy that doesn't
president.
look
I
like
don't know
him.
if that's true
Okay, I kind of that's a little bit closer again still.
or not, but a lot of people are saying that. So don't miss out. Go to
Who's this?
Look at those muscles. Look at
Yeah.
his biceps. Trump has never had biceps.
He doesn't exercise. He says your body is a battery.
And that is a four-fingered person counting the thumb there, holding the Bitcoin orb. So I love to get the card with only 4 fingers and a very muscular Donald Trump.
Right.
And I love the idea that Trump would wear this like skin tight dress shirt with an unbuttoned tie at the top. Like, look how tight that tie is
Doesn't it
around
just
his
turn
neck.
you
Go to collecttrumpcards.com. Go right now and collect your piece of American history.
Okay.
Let's have fun together and enjoy my Trump cards. We're going to have a lot of fun. We'll be talking about it for a long time. Thank you very much.
Thank
have
you.
a good time.
Can you go back just a little bit? I want to read some
That's
of
why
that.
he loves Jake Paul. Oh, you want to read the
I wanna
fine
read
print?
Fine print here. Some interesting stuff. NFT INT LLC is not owned, managed, or controlled by Donald J. Trump, the Trump Organization, Digital, any of the respective principal affiliates. So yeah, Trump's name, likeness, and image apparently. So yeah, look, if there's something wrong with it, don't come running to me. Okay, you just have fun.
Have a good time.
This is why he loves Jake Paul so much. This is who he really wishes he was.
He wants to be a boxer.
Yeah. Get the knockout suit. Okay, so you know how historians may want to preserve, I don't know why, but like perhaps some of his suits or outfits for a museum, right? He was the president. I mean, he's one of the worst, but he was the president.
Yeah, sure.
Is there anything more like symbolic of Donald Trump as a figure in politics that instead of maybe preserving some of his outfits for historical preservation, that he's cutting them up in little tiny pieces and sending them to his fans? If they spend $1,500 on a scam, they'll get a little piece of it so they can have a piece of the guy. I mean, that's him in a nutshell.
But this is what I love about this is what I really admire about Donald Trump is that I think for the average viewer or voter, they don't realize that the man who is running for president has been running for president for nigh on a decade. For whatever reason, whether he's too over leveraged on his debt, whether he's actually running out of money, whether he has really uneasy creditors who need him to pay back some debt. The man is always selling something.
Always.
And I don't even mean like selling, like, I'm not even saying metaphorically. He is literally always like, okay, I need to actually find some way to make a buck from my, obsequious charlatan fans who don't know any better, that I'm just really bilking them for all that they're worth.
Right.
And I just absolutely love that it's also this type of like, I'm giving you a part of my body.
Yes.
It's my suit of armor
If you-
that I took to take down Joe Biden, my dear friend,
Eat
who I
the
miss
felt.
very much.
If you eat the felt, I will be with you.
It's like Colonel Tom Parker shit, like where when he's like, oh, by the way, guys, I signed myself in for a 9-year residency with a Trump NFTs, so gonna have to cut like 3 6-minute promos.
Exactly.
If that's cool.
Pretty great. All right, let's take another call here. Picking at random. Calling from a 571 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 571?
Hi. Is this me?
This is you. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi. My name is Alex. I can't tell you my exact location, but let's just say I'm from HQ.
Okay. Alex.
What's the bid, Alex? Let's cut to the chase here, buddy.
All right. Sorry. Long time. First time. I used to be really down the right wing rabbit hole. Consider myself a bit of a journalist myself, and I just want to say, watching you all here on the Majority Report, I'm sad Sam's not here. I really wanted to thank Sam, but
you guys
I
old
think
friends?
I'm really coming around. Great friends. I've actually been trying to email him. Been asking if he knows anybody at MSNBC, if they're looking for anybody who might be
He still
looking
knows
for a
a
new
few
job here
people.
soon.
I could. What's the message? I could pass it along to Sam to pass along to MSNBC.
Oh, Emma, I can't thank you enough. If you could make sure that he emails dot Jones
Mm-hmm.
at Infowars.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's an old email. Apologies. If you could just have him give me a call and maybe see if give me a spot sometime soon. I'd really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll look into that. Thank you very much, Alex. I thought you were doing an RFK bit,
I'm
but
having Tom Waits.
it's Alex Jones. Thanks so much. Funky stuff. It's not a bit, Matt. Don't make fun of his voice. Floyd the Barber. Is that the Cookie Monster? Me wants chemtrails. Future Reactionary said, but they're not cutting up the suits. It's just a swath of cloth that they're sending out. That's probably true.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily. I don't think a historian would necessarily take the Trump NFT Inc. LLC's word for it that is the genuine knockout suit, as everybody's calling it.
Also, don't you think Trump would be like somewhat disgusted by the idea of them cutting his suit up to like give to people?
I think he probably takes great pride in those.
I think he says, "Yeah, how much money is it going to get? Okay, yeah, please cut all of them up."
Cut him up.
He probably doesn't wear the same socks twice. He
I was gonna say
probably
it's
throws
probably
them in the trash.
He must have like actually. That's a great question. How many suits do we think Donald Trump has?
Is it a great question or
600?
No, let's move on.
1,000?
I like that this tickles your fancy.
But they're the same. They're the same exact suit.
They are the same. He really is. He's rarely in black. It's navy, red tie. That's kind of his whole shebang.
I've never seen him in black.
Yeah.
Yeah, a black suit. I don't think so.
JR in Philly. Emma, don't you remember that Tracy named one of his kids George Foreman on 30 Rock? I did, but I never knew that was. See, this is why that show, I always I discovered new jokes I didn't catch the first time. So his kids are, one of them is George Foreman.
I
yes.
think you could watch 30 Rock like 4 or 5 times and like still miss a few punchlines. Honestly.
I have done so. But I'm realizing I'm starting to sound really old the more I talk about 30 Rock as like the only show that I love like with this depth. I mean, my other show is Mad Men, but I've got to update my references. I tried with The Bear the other night, and it's like, God, like my brain is just, it's not as open to new things anymore. It's like I'm 60, but I'm not.
And I do think it's sort of tough when there are so many options for streaming, and also like it's like everything is so splintered that like you could theoretically watch a number of new TV shows that actually no one else is watching, or I guess no one else in like your circle is watching.
Yes, yeah. No, I miss the communal experience of it. I mean, the Sopranos
totally.
of it all, or the Game of Thrones, yeah.
But what's funny is I think someone tweeted this being like, thinking about like the Olympics or the DNC, it's like people miss monoculture, and it's like, yeah, you could watch football, guys.
Right.
If you really miss a communal viewing experience.
Well, that's
watch Thursdays, Sundays, and Mondays.
Yep. I'm very excited about football. Yes. I mean, they're opening with a Friday game in Brazil. They're doing a Friday game for the first time. Packers Eagles in Brazil.
I don't think I realized it was in South America. I saw the Friday thing. That's nuts. That'll be crazy.
It'll be awesome.
I hope it's a fun crowd.
I like the NFL plays some of these games internationally, like the Brazil game, the Mexico game, and
Germany.
Yeah.
London.
Brandon from Kentucky. I love pedantry, so pretty sure being an assistant coach would translate well to a position where you were essentially an assistant president. That's exactly right. Ryan from Rochester. My upper-class middle dad who owned a company he's sold to retired. He loves prodding the idea of teachers living like fat cats off their pensions, but he sees one working at the Bills training camp and acts like, look at them having fun getting to see the team up close while sucking off the public dole. It's funny, yeah. Emma's distant cousin says, Trump selling parts of his suit remind me in part of the Gospels when Jesus tells centurions betting on his garments. You want to know how you can add more to the pot? Save some of those, and each of you find a couple of people who will find a couple of people. Desert Lefty, C is for chemtrails, the trails that never fail. Yeah, RFK Jr. was tweeting out chemtrails stuff the other day. JR in Philly, that was a pretty artful way to tell me that I'm old and need new references, but you'll pry 30 Rock from my cold dead hands. No, it's a self-consciousness that I have
also,
about it.
With all due respect, Emma, I I empathize with you obviously because I'm younger than you and made an Eddie Haskell reference from Leave It to Beaver yesterday. So.
No, you have a deep cultural reference pool. To pull from.
I'm actually, if anything outside of reality TV, I'm basically never watching anything as it's currently happening.
That's true. All right, guys. Final call of the day here. Calling from a 585 area code. 585?
Oh my God, is this me?
This is you, but your phone is very...
Oh, sweet. I'll try to speak up. I'm a quiet talker. Is that better?
That's better, yes. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Okay. Brandon from Rochester. Surprised to get on. Oh, yeah, that's right. You guys haven't talked about... I heard that Israel has shelled South Lebanon in population centers with white phosphorus like since October 7th already, and I haven't heard much coverage of that in a while.
Yeah, not in a while probably. I think we did cover it months ago, but yeah, maybe not in a bit. Yep. White phosphorus is basically melts your flesh down to the bone pretty instantly.
Yep,
also, when people inhale
a war crime.
Yeah, it's definitely a war crime. When people inhale it, they it can get into their lungs and kill them from the inside as well.
Yep. Well, in a sharp left turn from that, if you're ever looking for an alternate revenue stream, I'm pretty sure you could moonlight doing stand-up.
Oh, that's... I don't know about that, but I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Anything else, Brandon?
I was hoping to debate Sam someday on something that he probably will have some good comebacks for. So
All right. I'll flag you for that.
Yeah.
Have a
Bye.
good one. Bye.
You too.
All right, guys. We're going to read some IMs and then get out of here. Sorry, folks, to everyone on the line. Finn in Denver. 30 Rock had an amazing background joke that I missed until rewatching last week where Joe Rogan played Nelson Mandela in an NBC biopic. Yep. They have some great ones like that. I keep getting trying to get Matt to watch it, but he's too stubborn.
It's so valuable though.
Tina Fey, I mean, yeah, I think she just stands above the rest. I mean, and Robert Carlock deserves a lot of credit for that show too, but
there are so many prescient bits from 30 Rock, but one of them that I think is just will always like stand above for me is sports shouting.
Sports shouting's
just,
great.
Sports shouting like literally is just like predicted and also just like in 10 seconds skewered the entirety of sports media.
They also did Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby are rapist jokes before the allegations came out. I mean, I think Hannibal, who had done the Cosby bit, right? Like Hannibal Buress, he might have been writing for the show. I know he was like a extra in some, like they just had great writers there too, really talented people who were just so funny and slipped that stuff in. And I mean, there's also political humor. Like 30 Rock is so good at Liz is like a white liberal lady and they skewer her. Jack is a Republican free market fundamentalist. They skewer him. And no other sitcoms in this day and age have political bends. And when they do, it's horrible. Like Parks and Rec with Leslie Knope being in love with Joe Biden, but that's basically it. And then the libertarian guy is also like really cuddly. But it's not satirical in any way. Like 30 Rock took gambles on politics and cultural and corporate critique that I just, without Lorne Michaels having her back, she couldn't have done that kind of stuff.
And the corporate critique stuff, I think, is some of the best when it's like the running joke of just the number of companies of like who are either trying to buy or absorb, GE and everything like that in the fact that like a consumer electronics or consumer appliances company has like sway over the show.
Yes.
And like, what goes on the show is just like, again, and a similar thing in terms of like sponsored content, like just totally predicted that too.
JR in Philly writes in, MILF Island predicted in the worst possible reality show, MILF Manor. Yes, an early bit. And then in those early seasons, Jack also goes to work for the Bush administration at the end, and like they don't have everything's falling apart, and they don't have pens or pencils, right? Like, that's good. Fart Twain says, I love Liz's boyfriend saying he's a social conservative and fiscal liberal. Yeah.
Every one of Liz's romantic partners is incredible.
Yep.
I mean, Dennis is one of the funniest characters on the planet.
Absolutely. I like when he says he failed his firefighter's exam because it's so biased against the Irish. Gay GSN said, simple request, please keep Emma saying me want chemtrails and Cookie Monster voice for the soundboard. I think we can just leave that to RM Brown. How about that? My brain hurts. Would Trump give a lock of his hair for $50K? Fund me, anybody? Legume says, that's why he wears the double full break slacks and 7-foot long tie, so he has more to sell. Right, the more cloth, the more you get. To the window to the wall says, one of the Trump cards look like Alec Baldwin playing him on SNL. All right, just a few more and then we'll get out of here. Swing State Werewolf Bar Mitzvah. That's a great bit. Fun little trivia about that bit is that that's actually Donald Glover singing in an impression of Tracy Jordan because Tracy Morgan wasn't around to record that. So if you guys ever want to listen to Werewolf Bar Mitzvah, a great parody song, that's actually Donald Glover on that track. Dude, Guy Pass in 30 Rock is one of the best, but this is always a Sunny Erasure, Emma. It's always Sunny. I think that's of that era. Like, I love The Office for nostalgia, but The Office doesn't say anything really that substantive about society. Like, it's always Sunny, and 30 Rock took risks in the way a lot of other sitcoms didn't at the time. Congressional baseball fan, the Israeli beach pickleballers only regret is that there weren't any basketball courts left in Gaza for them to take over for their genocidal gentrification pickleball project. DSA Aaron in Atlanta, chatter is right. You are quite funny, Emma. Thank you very much. Hank Aaron 715. Bradley's background laugh should be a Majority Report trademark. You know, it's a great segment when you hear him laughing 20 feet away. Yes, it's pretty good. All right.
I'm a high decibel guy.
You are. 5, and then we'll get out of here. Scoot from Denver. I never thought I'd see Trump steal an idea from Yoko Ono, but one of her early art installations involved patrons to cut pieces off her clothes. I want to DEI says black middle class neighborhood that represented a continuum within Oakland, referring to that. Yes. Congressional baseball fan. Trump is straight up selling Catholic relics. I can't wait till we can buy Trump finger bones on the open market. Noah from Tampa. God, he is such a funny person. I know. Without that, he would never have gotten anywhere. He would have gotten 7% in that primary or whatever. But his humor and people enjoying his just like being on TV is a huge part of his appeal. And the final I am of the day. Racial dreamer. I grew up in Oklahoma and always appreciate Kowalski calls. He reminds me of the best traits from that part of the world. Best traits people from that part of the world can have, despite the MAGA brain rot so many of them have caught. All right, guys. Appreciate you all. We will see you tomorrow. I'm trying to see, is there anything else we should get to? Nope, I think we're good. Appreciate you all. See you then. Bye-bye.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I get somewhere the choice is made, for the option where you don't get paid, for shifted in and out.